Chapter 614. Every world's origin was not equal in terms of rank. If they were divided according to the cultivators, there would be differences in strength between the origin powers. For example, the origin power of the Huaxia cultivation world was much stronger than that of the wind and fire cultivation world. This was why the enforcers of the wind and fire cultivation world were always at the bottom, suppressed by the enforcers of the other worlds. Otherwise, why would the enforcers of the wind and fire cultivation world, which was so big and had so many resources, not be strong enough? Could it be that the origin power of the wind and fire cultivation world only chose those with poor aptitudes to be the enforcers? This was impossible. Every origin power hoped that their enforcers would be strong. Therefore, they would always choose those with outstanding aptitudes to be the enforcers. However, why was the gap between the enforcers getting bigger and bigger? This was related to the strength of their world's origin power. For example, the gap between Murong Yu and Mo Fo. Although Murong Yu's aptitude was much stronger than Mo Fo's, his cultivation speed was much faster than Mo Fo's. However, other than Murong Yu's aptitude, after he became an enforcer, the origin power of the Huaxia cultivation world continuously improved his physique, allowing his aptitude to reach a new level. Every world's origin power changed their enforcers in this way. During this process, the enforcers also continuously gave back, allowing their origin to become stronger and stronger. Perhaps it was not appropriate to compare Murong Yu and Mo Fo. Then, let's compare them with the previous generation of enforcers. There were only Yonglin and Ko Ping. In the beginning, their aptitudes were about the same. It could even be said that they were on par with each other, and their strength was also about the same. However, as they became enforcers for a long time, the gap between them grew bigger and bigger. In the beginning, they were on par, but later on, Yang Lin suppressed Ko Ping. In the end, he even left Ko Ping far behind, to the point that Ko Ping could only look at his back. Why would the gap between two people with similar aptitudes grow bigger and bigger? Apart from the various fortuitous encounters, the most important thing was the transformation that the world's origin had given them. Other than Murong Yu and Yang Lin, every generation of Punishers in history was the same. Furthermore, the stronger they were, the stronger they would be. On the contrary, if it was weak, it would be weaker. For example, the Wind and Fire Immortal Realm was at the bottom of the Yin Huang Immortal Realm. If Murong Yu were to burn a part of the Wind-Fire world's origin, the Wind-Fire world's origin would become even weaker. What do you want? The origin of the Wind and Fire cultivation world stopped struggling. After a long while, a slightly tired voice sounded in Murong Yu's mind. The origin source of the Wind and Fire cultivation world communicated directly with Murong Yu through the endless void. Murong Yu maintained an indifferent expression on his face, but his heart was filled with joy. Judging from the origin of the wind and fire cultivation world, it seemed that it wanted to negotiate. In this way, Murong Yu's chances of becoming the punisher of the wind and fire cultivation world were even higher. The origin of the wind and fire cultivation world. Forget it, I'll call you Fenghua. Fenghua, you probably know why your strength is getting weaker and weaker among the other cultivation worlds. Why are you at the bottom of the 36 cultivation worlds of the Yin Huang Immortal Realm? If I'm not wrong, you've been at the bottom for a long time, right? Furthermore, if you continue to develop like this, you will become weaker and weaker. Not only will you always be at the bottom, but the gap between you and the other origins will also widen. Silence. Murong Yu is speaking the truth. Therefore, the origin of the wind and fire cultivation world chose to remain silent. At the start, your aptitude was about the same as Huaxia's. However, Huaxia might not be first, but I dare to say that she's second. Furthermore, because of my existence, Huaxia will surpass Huaxia and become number one. At that time, the gap between the two of you will be even greater. Because of this, the wind and fire cultivation world will gradually decline. What do you want? Fenghua asked in a low voice. Now, I'll give you a chance to become stronger. Murong Yu said with a smile. Acknowledge your identity, and let you become the punisher of the wind and fire cultivation world? That's impossible. Feng Hua immediately refused. Murong Yu knew that Feng Hua would refuse, but he maintained a smile on his face. Feng Hua, won't you think about it? You must know that you won't get another chance. My punisher can only be someone from the wind and fire cultivation world. You're not. Furthermore, no outsider has ever been able to become the punisher of another world. That's impossible. Whether it's possible or not, it's all done by people. As long as you and I are willing, what's impossible? Feng Hua, you better think about it. This is the only chance for you to become stronger and the wind and fire cultivation world to become stronger. Of course, if you really don't want to, I can return your origin energy. The origin of the wind and fire cultivation world fell silent. Murong Yu wasn't in a rush. He sat cross-legged in the origin space of the Huaxia cultivation world, quietly waiting for Feng Hua's reply. 3 days. On the 4th day, the origin of the wind and fire cultivation world's voice finally sounded in Murong Yu's mind. Murong Yu, I've thought about it. If you agree to my request, I'll immediately acknowledge your identity and make you my punisher. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about. Let's hear it. Murong Yu said indifferently. You can become my punisher, but you can't be biased. After becoming the punisher, you have to treat yourself as someone from the wind and fire cultivation world. You have to treat the wind and fire cultivation world as your home. Once the wind and fire cultivation world is attacked, you have to do everything you can to resolve the crisis. At this point, the origin of the wind and fire world of cultivation stopped. Murong Yu waited for a long time, but he still didn't hear Feng Hua's voice. Only then did he say, "Finished? That's all. That's all. If you agree, I'll immediately acknowledge your identity." Feng Hua said in a low voice. "Ha ha!" Murong Yu laughed loudly and said, "Feng Hua, you underestimate me too much. Murong Yu, may not be a good person, but once I become the punisher of the wind and fire cultivation world, then the wind and fire cultivation world will be my world. Just like the Huaxia cultivation world, there's no distinction between us. Feng Hua, if you don't believe me, you can remove my punisher's recognition." Murong Yu said indifferently. "Okay, I believe you. However, if you want to become the punisher, you have to come to my world. Otherwise, it won't be done. If that's the case, then you can send me to the wind and fire cultivation world. If it was just one origin of the world, perhaps it wouldn't be able to send Murong Yu to the other world. However, if the origins of the two worlds work together, it shouldn't be a problem. Murong, you really want to go to the wind and fire cultivation world? What if he's not sincere? You might be plotted against." Huaxia's voice sounded in Murong Yu's mind. For example, when Murong Yu was teleported, Feng Hua would send him to a forbidden area in the wind and fire cultivation world. If that happened, Murong Yu would definitely be in for a tragedy. "Don't worry, I believe Feng Hua isn't so stupid." Murong Yu smiled and said, "If Feng Hua really did that, then there was no need for him to exist. Moreover, this was the only chance for the wind and fire cultivation world to become stronger. If Feng Hua didn't want to die, then he definitely wouldn't do that." However, Murong Yu was still prepared. It was better to be safe than sorry. Whoosh! Under the combined efforts of Huaxia and Feng Hua, Murong Yu directly left the Huaxia cultivation world and entered the endless universe. Just like when Mo Fo attacked the Huaxia cultivation world. However, before Murong, you could carefully admire the beautiful starry sky. The scene in front of him changed. Then, he appeared in a chaotic space. This was the origin space of the wind and fire cultivation world. Feng Hua, there's a big difference between your strength and Huaxia's. As soon as he arrived, Murong Yu felt the difference between the wind and fire origin space and Huaxia's origin space. Whether it was the strength of the origin energy or the density, the difference between the two was huge. Hearing Murong Yu's words, Feng Hua only snorted. This was something he had always been depressed about. "That's enough, Feng Hua. Don't be so depressed. You'll soon realize that you made the right choice today." Murong Yu smiled, paused for a moment, then continued. "All right, let's begin. Getting the recognition of the wind and fire cultivation world's origin wasn't difficult. It was just refining some of the origin energy. Moronyu already had experience with this. However, he still used 3 years to successfully merge with the wind and fire cultivation world's origin and become the enforcer of the wind and fire cultivation world. When Moronyu successfully became the enforcer of the wind and fire cultivation world, Moronyu's face couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. He even couldn't help but cry out in surprise. This was because when he became the enforcer of the 2 cultivation realms, he discovered that the 2 origin forces in his body had begun to show signs of merging. In reality, this couldn't be considered merging. It was more like water and milk. The 2 origin energies merged together without any gaps and actually started to flow in Moronyu's body. With every cycle, Moronyu was shocked to feel that his aptitude had increased by a bit. Although it was just a bit, what if it continued for a long time? Moronyu's aptitude would definitely increase to a terrifying level. Could it be that by becoming the executor of more worlds and controlling more of the world's origin energy, one's aptitude will increase even more? If that's the case, then if I become the enforcer of the cultivation world, Moronyu's heart couldn't help but burn. Chapter 615. Of course, these thoughts only flashed through Moronyu's mind for a moment. How heaven-defying was it to be able to become the enforcer of 2 cultivation worlds? Becoming the enforcer of more worlds? The possibility of this was close to 0. After all, it was extremely difficult to kill the other enforcers and even obtain their origin energy. No one would be as unlucky as Mo. Moreover, even if Moronyu killed the enforcers of other cultivation worlds and obtained their origin energy, he might not be able to become enforcer. After all, the other world's origin energy was not as weak as the wind and fire cultivation worlds. They would not compromise even if they were injured. His aptitude was constantly increasing. In time, Moronyu's aptitude would increase to an extremely terrifying level. In addition, Moronyu now had the origin energy of 2 worlds. If he encountered any situation where he had no choice but to use the origin energy, Moronyu could use the origin energy of the 2 worlds and even teleport back to the 2 worlds. Although Moronyu's strength did not increase because of this. However, his overall strength had become even stronger. In addition, Moronyu's status in the Heavenly Punisher Palace had undoubtedly increased by a lot. 2 enforcers of the cultivation world and a powerful branch of the Heavenly Court in the immortal world. In terms of power, Moronyu's power was not inferior to the factions that had been operating in the Heavenly Punisher Palace for a long time. However, in terms of peak experts, Moronyu was still far from them. However, Moronyu's power was only at the beginning. In time, Moronyu's power would become even stronger. Fenghua, after Mo was killed, the wind and fire cultivation world was in chaos. How is it now? After fusing with the wind and fire cultivation world's origin energy, Moronyu had obtained a portion of Fenghua's memories. He also knew about the changes in the wind and fire cultivation world when Mo was killed. Only a few of them know about the existence of the enforcers. However, no one knows who the enforcers are. Even though they were terrified at the time of the upheaval, they were still in shock. However, after a period of time, when they saw that there were no abnormalities, they settled down. Feng was said in a deep voice. Moronyu nodded. This way, it would save him a lot of trouble. Otherwise, Moronyu would have to think of a way to settle these people down if the wind and fire world fell into chaos. After all, the wind and fire cultivation world was now his world. He did not want these people to live in fear all the time. This would not benefit the development of the world at all. The wind and fire world of cultivation will remain the same. If anything happens, send me a message immediately. In the future, feel free to use the power I send back to you to increase your cultivation. Before Moronyu left, he said to Fenghua. The two of them complemented each other. The cultivation world's origin could improve Moronyu's physique, and they could also cultivate with the power that Moronyu's body reflected back. No matter which side was stronger, both sides would become stronger and stronger. It's time to kill evil people and earn star points. Morongyu muttered in his heart. Now, he was only 950,000 star points away from being able to exchange for the soul grass from the Tian FA token. There were evil people in every world. Whether it was the immortal world, the heaven realm, the cultivation world, or the mortal world, there were many evil people. The immortal world is huge, and there are countless immortals. However, most of them are either in their own factions or in the city. If I kill them wantonly, it will attract the attention of others. I can only kill a portion of them in each place and then move on to the next place. This way, I will be tossing and turning, and the effect will not be very good. Morongyu pondered in his heart, thinking of where to go to complete the 1 million star points. Other than that, what made Morongyu helpless was that he had to see someone. Only then would he know whether the other party was good or bad. Of course, what he could see with his spiritual will was the same. However, if it was in the immortal world city, it would be fine if there were not many experts in the city. However, if it was in a super city like Lingnan City, Morongyu did not dare to spread his spiritual will too far. There were simply too many experts there. If his divine sense inadvertently swept over a powerhouse, it would probably cause the other party to be uneasy and attack. Every day, there were many people who died under such circumstances. Young master, why don't you kill evil people in the Huaxia cultivation world and the Fenghua cultivation world? Although these two worlds are relatively low level, there are still many star-level stars. While Morongyu was hesitating, Steward Tian's voice rang in Morongyu's mind. Morongyu's eyes immediately lit up. When he was thinking about it previously, he instinctively ignored these two worlds. This was because he vaguely felt that these two worlds were of a lower level than the immortal world, and there would not be many evil people. Even if there were evil people, after killing them, there would not be many star points. Although the number of immortals in these two cultivation worlds was only a drop in the ocean in the immortal world, it was not even enough. However, these two worlds were under his control. As long as he was willing, his spiritual will could envelop the entire world without being discovered. In the world that he completely controlled, he could kill anyone without being discovered by someone more powerful. After obtaining the star points, Morongyu could even eliminate the evil people in these two worlds and restore the beautiful world of these two worlds. Then, let's start from the Huaxia cultivation world. Morongyu's face revealed a smile, and then he directly teleported back through the Hichu Luo Shu. Huaxia cultivation world. Ever since Morongyu created the Chaos Shenzhen, Shenzhen had developed rapidly. It did not take long for it to become the strongest sect in the Huaxia cultivation world. Especially after Morongyu ascended, he would occasionally increase the strength of Shenzhen. At this moment, Shenzhen was definitely an overlord in the Huaxia cultivation world. If it were any other sect with such terrifying strength, they would have already been unable to suppress their surging ambition and unified the Huaxia cultivation world. However, Shenzhen did not do so. Now that the entire Huaxia cultivation world belonged to Morongyu, whether Shenzhen unified the Huaxia cultivation world or not, it was the same to him. Moreover, once Shenzhen unified the Huaxia cultivation world, it would not be very good for the development of the Huaxia cultivation world. Now, while Shenzhen was developing himself, he did not suppress other sections. Today's Huaxia cultivation world could be said to be full of competition, although Shenzhen was high above the other flowers. However, other sects, and forces would not belittle themselves and not develop their own forces because of Shenzhen's strength. On the contrary, they were more like Shenzhen, and all of them wanted to develop their sects to the same level as Shenzhen. As a result, the Huaxia cultivation world did not have the kind of open and covert fighting and killing that used to happen when the 10 great sects controlled the cultivation world. Today's Huaxia cultivation world was much more orderly. However, there were still many villains, and there were many of them. When Morongyu returned to Shenzhen, his huge divine mind enveloped the entire Shenzhen. Then his brows furrowed slightly. It was normal for there to be villains in Shenzhen. However, what Morongyu did not expect was that the number of villains in Shenzhen was beyond his imagination. Most of the people in Shenzhen were good people or villains with no stars. However, a small number of them had reached the standard of a star villain. In fact, through Murong Yu's spiritual force, he could even see some people being enveloped by a dense black halo. These people's stars were at least 10 stars, and they might even exceed 100 stars. Hiyu, come to the sacred palace to see me immediately. Murong Yu sat on the main seat of the sacred palace with a gloomy expression. At the same time, he sent a voice transmission to Hiyu. Hiyu was the current sacred master of Shenzhen. After Murong Yu and Li Ling, he was the third sacred master of Shenzhen. His strength was considered very strong in the Huaxia cultivation world, and he had already reached the half-step immortal realm. Although there were many immortals in Shenzhen now, Hiyu's strength was not weak. However, Hiyu's strength was not considered much. However, Hiyu had not cultivated for a long time. Moreover, to become the Grand Master of Glory Sect, one needed not only great strength but also ability. However, Hiyu's ability was not bad. Murong Yu directly read part of the memories of Shenzhen's disciples. They had a very good impression of this sacred master. At this moment, Hiyu was cultivating in seclusion. When he heard Murong Yu's voice, he could not help but be shocked. Then, without hesitation, he directly teleported to the sacred palace. Could it be that the previous sacred master, Senior Li Ling, has returned? Hiyu thought to himself as he raised his head to look at Murong Yu. When he saw him, he was almost scared to death. Junior Hiyu pays his respects to the founder. The moment he saw Murong Yu, he recognized the identity of this great god. This was the founder of Shenzhen, a godlike existence in Shenzhen. His position in Shenzhen was irreplaceable. He was a legend. When Hiyu saw Murong Yu, he was greatly shocked. Then, he became excited, and finally, he became nervous. After all, he did not know if Murong Yu was satisfied with Shenzhen's development. However, this great god's face seemed to be gloomy. Could it be that he had disappointed him? Hiyu's heart was filled with apprehension, but he still respectfully bowed to Murong Yu. No need to be so polite. Hiyu, how is Shenzhen's development now? Murong Yu looked at Hiyu with a gloomy face and asked. Replying to the founder's question, Shenzhen's development is good now. Even the entire Huaxia's self-cultivation world is much better than before. Shenzhen is also getting stronger and stronger. Hiyu said with some fear and trepidation. Is Shenzhen's development really as good as you said? Hiyu, let me ask you. Within Shenzhen, are there any people who use Shenzhen's identity to commit crimes outside? Hiyu's heart skipped a beat, and his expression changed drastically. Chapter 6:16. As the sect leader of Shenzhen, Hiyu had been doing his best to manage Shenzhen, working hard to make Shenzhen stronger. He did not dare to have any other thoughts. Murong Yu's words seemed to be dissatisfied with Shenzhen. Not only did this make Hiyu feel uneasy, if this great god was not satisfied, then it would be really bad. Ancestor, Shenzhen is indeed developing well. I can guarantee that. However, I don't know what you were dissatisfied with. As for the people you mentioned, I really don't know. Could it be that there are people like that in Shenzhen? Hiyu carefully said the words that he had prepared beforehand, afraid that he would anger this great god. Oomph. Murong Yu could not help but snort, which made Hiyu's heart sink even more. Looking at Murong Yu's expression, there must be people like that in Shenzhen. However, why did he not find out? Ancestor, there might really be people like that in Shenzhen. As long as you give me some time, I will definitely find them and punish them. He was a little angry. No need, Murong Yu said with a gloomy face. Hiyu looked at Murong Yu with a puzzled expression. I already know who they are. As he spoke, Murong Yu pointed at Hiyu. At the same time, a ray of light entered Hiyu's body. At the same time, information appeared in Hiyu's memory, including dozens of Shenzhen's people. Gather these people and bring them to the sacred hall. Murong Yu said in a deep voice. Ancestor, are you saying that these people are the kind of people who rely on the sect to do whatever they want? But from what I know, they're devoted to Shenzhen. They can't be people like that. Hiyu was confused. Murong Yu's face darkened. Hiyu, are you doubting me? You don't believe me? Cold sweat dripped down He Yu's face as he hurriedly said, "I wouldn't dare. Junior will go now." As he spoke, He Yu hurriedly left the sacred hall. He really didn't dare to doubt Murong Yu's words, nor would he. The reason why he retorted was a natural reaction. With Murong Yu's status, no matter what he said, no one in Shenzhen would doubt him. Gao Ji was one of Shenzhen's elders. He was an eminent celestial. At this moment, he was walking towards the sacred hall with a gloomy expression. It was because previously he had been cultivating in seclusion, preparing to take the final step to ascend with multicolored light, to enter the immortal world as soon as possible. However, he was awakened by He Yu. Furthermore, he had requested for him to go to the temple. He didn't dare to disobey the Holy Lord's words. Of course, this had to be the case on the surface. However, he was very unhappy in his heart. However, as soon as he arrived outside the sacred hall, he saw a few other people teleporting over as well. Among them were eminent celestials with the same strength as him. There were also people who were in the transformation stage, or even the tribulation stage. These people had different identities. Some were Shenzhen's protectors, some were elders like Gao Ji, and some were just ordinary disciples. Why did the Holy Lord summon us here? One of the protectors asked with a frown. In Shenzhen, if there was nothing important, they wouldn't enter the sacred hall. After all, the sacred hall was the most supreme place in Shenzhen. Only the Holy Lord had the right to enter it. Every time there was a meeting in the sacred hall, something big had happened or was about to happen. Gao Ji looked at these people with a gloomy expression. Among the dozens of people, he didn't know most of them. However, there were a few people who, when he saw these people, Gao Ji's expression became even more gloomy. A bad feeling rose in his heart. Gao Ji, did the sacred hall summon us this time because they found out about us? The person who transmitted his voice to Gao Ji was the protector who had spoken earlier. His name was Lunan, and his strength was also at the half-step celestial emperor realm. Don't talk nonsense. We've been very careful. No one can find out. As long as we deny it, the Holy Lord can't do anything to us, Gao Ji said in a low voice. Lunan nodded and entered the sacred hall with the others. However, when they entered the sacred hall, they were shocked to see their Holy Lord, He Yu, standing at the side of the hall with a respectful expression on his face. On the supreme seat that represented Shenzhen, a black-robed young man with a gloomy expression was sitting there. "Greetings, Founder." When they saw Murong Yu, they were stunned. Some of them didn't even know how to react. However, Gao Ji and the others reacted immediately. Hence, everyone hurriedly bowed. "Do you admit to your crimes?" Murong Yu looked at them with a gloomy expression. He acted as if he didn't see them bowing. Everyone bowed and lowered their heads, not daring to look at Murong Yu. No one dared to say a word. He Yu's face turned gloomy when he saw everyone's reaction. Everyone's reaction meant that they were guilty. Gao Ji's heart sank when he heard Murong Yu's words. He knew that things weren't going well. However, as an old fox, he believed that there were no loopholes in their story. Even if Murong Yu was the founder of Shenzhen, he wouldn't know. Therefore, he quickly calmed down and pretended to be confused as he raised his head and looked at Murong Yu. "Ancestral Master, this disciple doesn't know what you mean. There are no sinners in Shenzhen. As for us, we've given our all for the sake of Glory Sect." Gao Ji's face was stern as he spoke. Lunan couldn't help but despise Gao Ji when he saw how sanctimonious he was. However, he was a little impressed by this guy. His skin was extraordinarily thick. If he didn't know about Gao Ji's shady business, he would have thought that Gao Ji was telling the truth. Murong Yu couldn't help but sneer when he saw Gao Ji's reaction. If he didn't see that Gao Ji was an evil person, he would have believed that Gao Ji wouldn't do any shady business. However, in Murong Yu's eyes, Gao Ji's halo was the darkest. It was definitely more than 100 stars. How could an evil person like him praise him so much? Was he trying to portray himself as a good person? Murong Yu was disgusted by Gao Ji's behavior. Murong Yu was disgusted. However, Murong Yu didn't show it immediately. He just looked at Gao Ji indifferently. "Gao Ji, are you really a good person?" Murong Yu looked at Gao Ji with a gloomy face. Gao Zi's heart skipped a beat. However, he still believed that he had done his job well, and that no one knew. Therefore, he said firmly, "Yes, what I said is right." Murong Yu nodded and looked at the others. "Among all of you, do you think that you are an evil person? Or are you not guilty?" Everyone was very nervous. However, when they saw Gao Zi's expression, they also believed that Murong Yu wouldn't know about their business. Therefore, each of them said that they were good people with a firm expression. Murong Yu nodded and a smile appeared on his face. "Very good. You all think that you are good people. If you're not evil people, then you're not guilty." Smiles appeared on everyone's faces as if they agreed with Murong Yu's words. "However, do you think that I gathered all of you here to say that you are good people? Do you think that I have nothing to do? That I have nothing to do. So I gathered all of you here to talk about life ideals?" Murong Yu's voice suddenly turned cold. His face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. Endless murderous intent burst out. "You are all evil people of Shenzhen. The extent of your sins has exceeded my tolerance. I called all of you here because you are guilty. Don't think that you have done a good job and are very secretive. If it wasn't for me, I'm afraid that the entire world would not know about your evil deeds. However, you met me. In front of me, I can clearly see how much you're worth. Gao Zi, I'm not wrong, am I?" Gao Zi's face was filled with fear, but he still pretended to be wronged. "Gao Zi, you have nowhere to hide in front of me. Now, I will give you a chance to explain the evil deeds that you have committed. I can be lenient. Otherwise, you know very well what the consequences will be." "Founder, I have not committed any crime. What is there to explain?" "Founder, if you continue to frame me, even if you are the founder, I am afraid that I will be disrespectful to you." Gao Zi's face was sullen as he said in a deep voice, "Gao Zi, how dare you?" Before Gao Zi's voice fell, and before Murong Yu could react, it was Yu who shouted from the side. Gao Zi's words were simply disrespectful to Murong Yu, the founder. This was something that he could not tolerate. "Interesting. You are actually playing the blame game and saying that I am framing you. In that case, let everyone see your evil deeds." As he spoke, Murong Yu stretched out his hand and grabbed at Gao Zi. A look of anger flashed across Gao Zi's face. Just as he was about to berate and resist, he was caught off guard by Murong Yu. At the same time, Murong Yu's huge divine thought directly entered Gao Zi's body and read Gao Zi's memories. At the same time, scenes continued to appear in the sacred hall, and these portraits were Gao Zi's memories. This was something Murong Yu had done on purpose. When he'd read Gao Zi's memories, he'd used a special ability to make them appear in his mind. Wow, so the Central State sect was destroyed by Elder Gao Zi. Like I said, how could the tens of thousands of people in the Central State sect be completely wiped out in a single night? So it was Elder Gao Zi who did it. However, isn't this too cruel? He only took a fancy to the wife of the Central State sect's sect master. The other party swore to die, so he massacred the entire sect? Elder Gao Zi actually has his own force outside. He actually stole resources from the sect to cultivate his own force? Elder Gao Zi actually has hundreds of women? Normally, when he was in the Glory sect, he would not touch any woman. These hundreds of women were snatched back by him. Chapter 617. Damn it. He even raped his own master's woman. He even slaughtered his master's entire family because of this. This is the sanctimonious Elder Gao Zi? What a scumbag. While Murong Yu was reading the memories, the images that Gao Zi displayed with his divine ability were constantly changing. When Murong Yu read Gao Zi's memories, everyone in the sacred hall saw this scene. When they saw Elder Gao Zi's innumerable bad deeds, these people couldn't help but curse out loud. Gao Zi had committed all kinds of evil deeds, and countless innocent people had been killed by him. Apart from those above, he had also bullied men and women, slaughtered other sects, and then amassed a lot of wealth. What made Murong Yu furious was that Gao Zi always relied on his identity as Shenzhen's elder whenever he did bad things. For example, if he took a fancy to a female disciple of a certain sect, or someone with other identities. He would think of ways to use his identity to get the other party, and once he was tired of her, he would either give her away, expel her, or even kill her. If someone did not comply, they would be killed by him, along with their sect and even their entire family. Gao Ji, you deserve to die. Looking at these scenes, Hiyu's entire body trembled. He had always thought that Gao Ji was a good person, a good elder who did his best for Shenzhen. However, he did not expect that the other party was actually a human in human skin. Human scum. On the surface, Gao Ji had always been thinking for Shenzhen. In reality, he had constantly ruined Shenzhen's reputation and even stole Shenzhen's various resources. Lu Nan, who was beside him, also looked at these portraits in shock. Although he knew that Gao Ji was not a bad person, at the same time, he did not think that he was a good person. However, he did not expect Gao Ji to be so bad. He could not catch up to him even if he tried. However, very quickly, his expression changed from shock to horror. That was because the fact that he and Gao Ji were in cahoots had been exposed. Gao Ji, what else do you have to say? Mu Rongyu released his control over Gao Ji and said with a gloomy face and overflowing killing intent. Gao Ji's face was ashen. He knew that his evil deeds had been exposed when Mu Rongyu controlled him. Therefore, when Mu Rongyu released his control over him, his eyes were filled with murderous intent, and he instantly exploded with all his strength, charging towards Mu Rongyu with a punch. Mu Rongyu's eyes were overflowing with killing intent. He did not do anything. He only snorted coldly. With a bang, Gao Ji's entire body had exploded into a cloud of blood mist. At the same time, Mu Rongyu blew out a breath of air, turning the blood mist into nothingness. Gao Ji, Gao Ji's father, Mu Rongyu, Lu, of Mu Rongyu, and Mu Rongyu. Ancestor, please spare my life. We have sinned. Please spare our lives, Ancestor. After witnessing Mu Rongyu's methods, how could Lu Nan and the rest still dare to quibble? Instantly, one by one, they knelt down and begged Mu Rongyu for mercy. When you killed those innocent people, did you ever think of sparing their lives? When your hands were stained with blood, did you ever think that many of those who died in your hands were innocent? Mu Rongyu's face was gloomy, and he looked at everyone indifferently as he spoke slowly. Ancestor, we have done wrong. We will definitely change. We will make it up to you. A disciple of Shenzhen pleaded with Mu Rongyu while crying bitterly. There are many things that cannot be made up for. You will never be able to make up for your crimes. No, Ancestor, please spare our lives. We will definitely turn over a new leaf. Hearing Mu Rongyu's words, everyone was horrified and begged for mercy. They did not dare to make a move, because they knew that even if they made a move, they would not be able to change anything. With their strength, a single breath from Mu Rongyu would be enough to kill them. A cold light flashed in Mu Rongyu's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, "It's too late." While Mu Rongyu was speaking, bang, 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 the dozens of people in the sacred hall all exploded at the same time, turning into clouds of blood mist. Then, the blood mist quickly dissipated. When he saw Gao Ji's memory, he was already shocked and furious. Even if Mu Rongyu did not make a move, he wanted to kill him. However, why would Mu Rongyu let him make a move? Although they were all villains, and their stars were not low, the only good thing they could do in their lives was to contribute star points to Mu Rongyu. He did not know how Mu Rongyu knew that these people were villains. However, after the incident with Gao Ji, he no longer had any doubts. Therefore, when Mu Rongyu killed the remaining dozens of people, he did not help to plead for mercy. Since Mu Rongyu had asked them to come, they must be guilty. Hiyu, take away the identity of Shenzhen's disciple from these people's factions and those who have committed more serious crimes. Take back everything they have obtained from Shenzhen, including their cultivation. Then, get rid of Shenzhen. At the same time, pass down the order that all Shenzhen's disciples must account for their evil deeds and the bad things they have done in half a month's time. If they do not account for it within the time limit, and I find out, kill them without mercy. Yes, Master. Hiyu agreed without hesitation, and then left the sacred hall. No matter which faction it is, there will always be villains. It's the same for Shenzhen. However, it's fine if I don't find out. Now it's time to clean up the sect. Murong muttered to himself. The reason why he gave such an order was to clean up Shenzhen. Within the sage sect, evil people could be tolerated. However, it would definitely not tolerate villains with higher star levels. It's not just Shenzhen. It's time to clean up the entire Huaxia self-cultivation world. Murong Yu's figure flashed, and then he left Shenzhen. When he reappeared, Murong Yu was already in Tianyin's sect. Tianyin's sect had been one of the top 10 sects in Huaxia self-cultivation world for many years. Of course, after Shenzhen's rise, Tianyin's sect was still one of the top 10 sections. In fact, the Tianji sect, Tianyin sect, Yuanshu sect, and Wuji sword sect had all been destroyed by Murong Yu. Now, these 4 sects were just rebuilt. However, even so, they had squeezed back into the top 10 sects, and their strength was not bad. In the current Huaxia self-cultivation world, Chaos Shenzhen had been elevated to the level of a giant. It was a height that no one could compare to. Therefore, when the Huaxia self-cultivation world ranked the sects, Shenzhen was directly excluded. After all, if Shenzhen was included, the other sects were not qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with Shenzhen. Therefore, in addition to Shenzhen, there were also top 10 sects in the Huaxia self-cultivation world. However, the top 10 sects were now under Shenzhen's control. There was no killing and vicious competition like before. On the contrary, they were all in a healthy competition. They only compared the disciples of the sects and the overall strength of the sects, and worked hard to become Shenzhen. Among the top 10 sects, the Hidden Fairy Valley and the Mystic Moon sect were the most developed. They were the 2 superpowers among the top 10 sections. Because the Hidden Fairy Valley and the Mystic Moon sect had a good relationship with Shenzhen, they naturally received extra care from Shenzhen. As for the other sects, Shenzhen had nothing to do with them. The Sky Expanse sect was also very strong, and one of them had reached the immortal realm. However, even the immortal realm immortal could not discover Murong Yu in the void above their heads. Of course, the current Murong Yu had already altered his appearance. With his strength, no one in the self-cultivation world would be able to discover his true appearance if he casually changed his appearance. In the main hall of the Sky Expanse sect, the sect master, vice sect master, and many elders, as well as the core disciples of the Sky Expanse sect, were all gathered in the main hall as if they were discussing something. Suddenly, a large hand penetrated the main hall's restriction. The restriction that they were so proud of was like a piece of paper in front of that large hand and would be torn apart immediately. As soon as the large hand entered, it immediately pointed at the vice sect master of the Sky Expanse sect. With a bang, the vice sect master of the Sky Expanse sect was blown apart by that finger in front of everyone. Everyone was shocked and furious. Just as they were about to react, a series of images floated in the main hall. When they saw these images, the anger in their hearts was instantly extinguished. This was because these images all explained the same thing. Those were the good deeds that their vice sect master had done. There was no evil that he did not shrink from. His evil deeds simply made people develop. When the vice sect master of the Sky Expanse sect was killed, many disciples of the Sky Expanse sect were blown into a bloody mist at almost the same time or disappeared into thin air. In almost a few breaths of time, almost 1/10 of the entire Sky Expanse sect had disappeared or died. When the higher-ups of the Sky Expanse sect reacted and began to investigate who did it, they were shocked to find that these people who had died were all extremely vicious and evil people. This was because these people who died or disappeared would leave behind a jade slip at the place where they died or disappeared. Within the jade slip were the memories of those who were killed. They're all dead. The entire Sky Expanse sect was greatly shocked. They were shocked by the ruthlessness of the person who did it, and they were also shocked by the evil deeds that these villains had committed. Even more so, they were shocked by the person who did it. They could tell that these people were villains. The death of a large number of villains in the Sky Expanse sect was only the beginning. The Sky Expanse sect, the Fectus sect, the Limitless Sword sect, the Hidden Fairy Valley, the Mystic Moon sect, Within a day, a large number of disciples of the 10 great sects of the Huaxia cultivation world had died. Nearly 1/10 of the Sky Expanse sect's disciples had died, while the Fectus sect's disciples had died the most, almost reaching 40%. Among the 10 great sects, only the Hidden Fairy Valley and the Mystic Moon sect had the fewest deaths. This was because these two sects had relatively fewer villains. For a long time, the Hidden Fairy Valley and the Mystic Moon sect had a relatively good reputation. However, even so, over 10,000 disciples of these two sects have been killed. Among them, the Mystic Moon sect only had slightly more than 10,000 disciples, while the Hidden Fairy Valley had almost 20,000 disciples killed. It was only 1/10 of the Sky Expanse sect's disciples, compared to 1/10 of the Sky Expanse sect's disciples and 4/10 of the Fectus sect's disciples. This was simply negligible. During this process, one of the sects attracted Murong Yu's attention. It was the Hahuan sect. This sect had always had a bad reputation in the Huaxia cultivation world. However, the number of villains killed by Murong Yu in the sect was far from 1/10. It was only about 1/20. Chapter 618. Hahuan's sect situation made Murong Yu sigh inwardly. Hahuan's sect had always given people the impression that they were evil and sinful. Both men and women in the sect were bad people. However, in reality, there weren't many evil people in the sect. What was seen on the surface wasn't necessarily true. On the contrary, the Tianji sect, as one of the top 10 sects in the cultivation world, had 40% of their people killed. Moreover, the ones that Murong Yu killed were those with higher stars. As for those evil people with lower stars or no stars, Murong Yu didn't kill them. In other words, if these people were included, there were more evil people in the Tianji sect, definitely more than 60%. Those who looked like evil people weren't necessarily evil people. As for the real evil people, it was impossible to tell. After killing countless evil people from the top 10 sects, Murong Yu temporarily stopped. Steward Tian, how many stars do I have now? Murong Yu asked in his mind. Congratulations, young master. Your current stars have reached as high as 300,000. In other words, the top 10 sects have contributed more than 200,000 stars to young master. Steward Tian's smiling voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. Only 200,000 stars. Murong Yu frowned slightly. Previously, he had about 60,000 stars. In other words, Murong Yu only had 240,000 stars after killing countless evil people from the top 10 sects. In the immortal world, when he killed the Black Mysterious sect, he had already obtained more than 50,000 stars. One must know that the Black Mysterious sect wasn't very big. The number of people they had wasn't even comparable to any of the top 10 sections. Those killed by Murong Yu was definitely less than 1/10 of the total number of people killed by Murong Yu. However, why was it that although he killed fewer people, he had more stars? Young master, this is because their strength is different. Knowing that Murong Yu still had doubts in his heart, Steward Tian continued to explain, Master is currently in the perfected golden immortal realm. For example, if you kill a 100-star great overarching golden immortal, you'll be able to obtain 100 star points. However, if you kill a 100-star evil man of the 9 heavens mysterious immortal realm, then you might be able to obtain 150 star points and vice versa. If you killed a 100-star villainous man at the overarching heavenly supreme celestial stage, you might only obtain 50 stars. The higher the evil person's cultivation is, the more stars you will obtain after you kill him. The reverse is also true. Murong Yu nodded. He finally understood. For example, the people he killed now were all from the cultivation world. These people were like ants in front of him. To him, killing these people was too easy. Thus, even though the villains he killed were of a higher grade, the number of stars he obtained was still relatively small. Furthermore, if he went to the mortal world to kill evil people, although he would also be rewarded with star points, it would definitely be so little that it would make one's hair stand on end. Young master, you should be content. Although the number of star points he obtained was relatively small, currently, You've only killed a few evil people from the 10 great sects, and you've already obtained more than 200,000 star points. If you kill most of the evil people in Huaxia's cultivation world, then you should be able to obtain a few million star points. A few million star points. Murong Yu's eyes suddenly shone with a blazing light. Exchanging for soul grass only required 1 million star points. For Murong Yu, obtaining soul grass was no longer a problem. However, the more star points he obtained, the better it was for him. After all, if he needed something, he did not even need to look for it himself. He could directly exchange for it in the heaven punishment token. The more star points he obtained, the better the item he could exchange for. It could even directly increase the strength of the firmament. Most importantly, in Huaxia's cultivation world, it was very easy for Murong Yu to obtain star points. Time continued to pass. Murong Yu continued to attack, and people in Huaxia's cultivation world kept dying. Of course, those who died were all evil people. In the beginning, every time Murong Yu killed an evil person, he would extract his memory and leave it on the spot. This was because he did not want to cause panic. He wanted to tell the world that those he killed were all evil people. Murong Yu had achieved his goal by doing this. When many people found out that the people around them had suddenly died, they would always panic. However, when they found out that the person they had known for a long time was such an evil person, they felt relieved. During this period of time, countless evil people in Huaxia's cultivation world had been killed. Although they did not know who killed these evil people, there would always be people who clapped and cheered when the evil people were killed. After all, who did not want evil people in this world? Of course, although the relatives and friends of the evil people would be angry, they did not know who killed them. Naturally, they could only do nothing. In the end, after Murong Yu killed an evil person, he would not leave their memory or anything like that. This was a waste of time. Murong Yu only left a jade slip with the word evil person engraved on it at the scene where the evil person was killed. Even if Murong Yu did not extract their memory, later on, with the investigation of others, they finally found that those who were killed were indeed evil people. Later on, when people saw the jade slip of an evil person, they would not investigate it because they all knew that those who were killed were indeed evil people. The reason for that was because the ones killed during this period were all evil people. Even if on the surface, they looked like a very good person. Therefore, they believed that the person who secretly killed the evil people would not kill the innocent. Murong Yu indeed would not kill the innocent. Half a year had passed. In this half a year, Murong Yu almost did not stop. He had been killing evil people until his hands were tired. If these were not all star-level evil people, Murong Yu would probably not be able to resist killing them. At this time, Murong Yu's star points had reached 3 million. The higher the strength, the higher the star level of the evil person, and the higher the star points. However, in the cultivation world, no one's strength could be considered strong. Even if Murong Yu killed a 100-star evil person, he would not have many star points. Therefore, Murong Yu had killed at least tens of millions of evil people in this half a year, or even more. Tens of millions of lives, or even more. If Murong Yu had really killed so many evil people in the immortal world, Murong Yu would have obtained at least tens of millions of star points. But now, he only had a few million star points. What made Murong Yu speechless was that many times when he killed these evil people, he would not even get 1 star point. After discovering this, Murong Yu no longer killed those evil people with lower star levels. In the end, Murong Yu only killed evil people with 20 star level and above. It took him half a year to kill all the evil people with 20 star level and above in the entire Huaxia cultivation world, not leaving a single one behind. In this world, no one could hide from Murong Yu's eyes. One reason why he did not kill evil people with 20 star level and below was that they did not have many star points. Another reason was that Murong Yu knew that after the massacre of evil people in this half a year, he believed that those evil people with lower star levels would not dare to do evil again. This was because before Murong Yu stopped, he had released a message in the cultivation world. The general meaning was to warn those evil people who had not been killed, to let them know that it was not that Murong Yu did not know them, but that he did not want to kill them yet. Once they were found to continue doing evil, they would be killed. As long as they were in the Huaxia cultivation world, they would not be able to escape. The power of this sentence shocked those evil people until their bodies trembled. This was because they believed in Murong Yu's words. This was because the evil people who died during this period, no matter how well they hid and how secretively they hid, were still killed in the end. During this process, no one dared to take the opportunity to cause trouble and imitate Murong Yu to kill evil people. This was because everyone was afraid of Murong Yu. After the bloody killings in this half a year, it should have a deterrent effect on the world. For a long time in the future, the evil people in the Huaxia cultivation world should not increase. After obtaining a large number of star points, Murong Yu was somewhat excited. At the same time, he was happy that the Huaxia cultivation world would be peaceful for a period of time, a world without evil people. Although Murong Yu could not continue to obtain star points, wasn't this the world he wanted? After returning to Shenzhen, Murong Yu directly entered the Hichu Luoshu world. The evil people in Shenzhen? Those with higher star levels had already been killed by Murong Yu. As for those who were not of a high star level, they had already been expelled from the sage sect. Murong Yu's methods against Shenzhen's disciples were very fierce and cruel. All the evil people with more than 10 star levels had been personally killed by him. As for the evil people with 5 to 10 star levels, he directly deprived them of everything they had obtained from Shenzhen, including any magic weapons, resources, and even their cultivation and cultivation methods. Then, he directly expelled them. Therefore, the highest star level of evil people in Shenzhen was only 5 star levels. Moreover, there were very few star-level evil people. At the same time, Murong Yu also warned those star-level evil people that if he found that they had not become good people the next time he returned, they would be expelled from Shenzhen. With Murong Yu's words, if these people did not want their cultivation to be abolished, they would probably work hard to become good people in the future. Now, it should be time to exchange for the soul grass. Murong Yu entered the heavenly punishment order and appeared in front of Steward Tian. Young master, are you sure you want to exchange for the soul grass? That way, you will be deducted 1 million star points. There is no turning back. Steward Tian confirmed. Confirm. Shua. Just as Murong Yu confirmed, a layer of ripples appeared in the void in front of him, following which, a small grass that was only as tall as a palm and had 3 infant-like leaves appeared in front of Murong Yu. It emitted a faint soul aura. This small grass was a miraculous item that could repair souls. Soul grass. Chapter 619. In the Hichu Luoshu world, Yu Mengqing was alone in a garden. She looked at the flowers and felt a little lonely. Ever since Murong Yu got the heavenly punishment order, Zhao Jiqing and the others entered the space of the heavenly punishment order to cultivate. It was not a long time, so they did not come out of the space of the heavenly punishment order. Now, there was only her, Little Purple, and the big black dog in the Hichu Luoshu world. However, Little Purple seemed to have fallen into some kind of deep sleep. Every time it woke up, it would fall asleep again. As for the big black dog, it had not woken up after eating too much. Therefore, there was only Yu Mengqing in the Hichu Luoshu world. And because of her soul, she could not cultivate. Therefore, she could only be in a daze. Suddenly, the void in front of Yu Mengqing fluctuated slightly. Then, Murong Yu appeared in front of her. Big gangster, you're here. The moment she saw Murong Yu, Yu Mengqing's face lit up. It was too lonely for her to be here alone. Seeing Yu Mengqing's face full of joy, Murong Yu felt a little guilty and distressed. He understood Yu Mengqing's loneliness. However, he did not have the time to accompany her all the time. Now that he had the soul grass, as long as Yu Mengqing's soul was repaired, she could naturally leave here. She could go to the heavenly punishment world to cultivate, or even to the immortal world. Murong Yu hugged Yu Mengqing in his arms and said with heartache, Mengqing, it's been hard on you during this period. However, you will be able to end these days soon. Yu Mengqing was startled at first, then she was overjoyed. She quickly asked, Big gangster, You mean you can repair my soul? Morongyu smiled. At the same time, he opened his palm. The soul grass that was emitting a faint light was lying quietly in his palm. What do you think this is? Morongyu asked with a smile. Is this the soul grass? Yu Mengqing asked in disbelief. Yes, it is. Mengqing, your soul can be repaired. Morongyu said happily. Yu Mengqing's face immediately revealed a look of shock. She looked at Morongyu in shock and said, Big gangster, tell me, is this true? Can my soul really be repaired? Yu Mengqing's heart was very excited. Ever since her soul was injured, she had never been truly happy, because she did not know if her soul could really be repaired. Although Morongyu had always appeared very confident on the surface, and she also believed in Morongyu, but after all, it was her soul was damaged. How could it be repaired so easily? What she had been showing all this time was just an act. Yes, this is the legendary soul grass. It can repair souls. No matter how badly damaged a soul is, it can still be repaired. Morongyu smiled. Is this true? What, the soul grass? Big gangster, you must have worked very hard to get it. If you use it on me, it would be a waste. Yu Mengqing said hesitantly. She really wanted to repair her soul, but when the soul grass appeared in front of her, she hesitated. She felt that the soul grass was too precious. It would be a waste to use it on her. In fact, Morongyu could use the soul grass to exchange for more value. Silly, I got the soul grass for you. How is it a waste to use it on you? Also, the soul grass is precious. But in my heart, it is far less than a billionth of you. So don't hesitate. Eat the soul grass immediately. Morongyu said as he handed the soul grass to Yu Mengqing. Yu Mengqing was touched. She did not hesitate and took the soul grass. Then she ate it directly. Yes, she ate it directly. The soul grass melted in her mouth and turned into a force. It quickly flowed into Yu Mengqing's soul space. Yu Mengqing did not hesitate. She sat down cross-legged and began to repair her soul. Morongyu did not leave. Instead, he used his divine consciousness to enter Yu Mengqing's body. He watched Yu Mengqing repair her soul. After the force of the soul grass entered Yu Mengqing's soul, it directly acted on her soul. Under Yu Mengqing's guidance, the force began to repair Yu Mengqing's soul. Morongyu even saw the cracks in Yu Mengqing's soul. Under the effect of the soul grass, they began to heal slowly. The effect is not bad. Morongyu withdrew his divine consciousness from Yu Mengqing's body. There was no danger in using the soul grass to repair one's soul. As long as there was enough time, even if Yu Mengqing did not actively guide it, her soul would be repaired by the force of the soul grass. It was certain that Yu Mengqing's soul had been repaired. Morongyu looked at Zhao Jiqing and the others in the heavenly punishment world. They were still fighting with the experts in the heavenly punishment world. Their strength was constantly increasing, and the results were not bad. Should I go to the fiery wind cultivation world to kill evil people and obtain stars first, or should I do something else? After settling Yu Mengqing's matter, Morongyu relaxed. After relaxing, Morongyu suddenly felt that he had nothing to do. He originally had 3 million stars. After exchanging for the soul grass, he was left with 2 million stars. Morongyu did not need to exchange for anything for the time being. Therefore, these stars were enough for him. He was not in a hurry to earn stars. The South Mountains cannot be solved for the time being. The Heavenly Court's development is on the right track. As for the Heavenly Punishment Palace, Morongyu frowned slightly. Morongyu did not have time to hand in the mission regarding the mysterious disappearance of the Heavenly Punishment Palace's Palace Master. This was because he did not know where the Palace Master was. Perhaps he had already died in the Immortal Land. Moreover, there was actually an elder in the Heavenly Punishment Palace who was coveting the Heavenly Court. This made Morongyu somewhat unhappy. Let's increase my strength first. When the time comes, I want to see if that elder dares to interfere with the Heavenly Court's matters. I will directly exterminate him. Morongyu's eyes flashed with a bright light. Thinking about increasing his strength, Morongyu could not help but feel somewhat depressed. Ever since the previous breakthrough, The chaotic heavenly body record did not show any signs of a breakthrough. This not only made Murong-yu feel very depressed. However, Murong-yu was like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. He did not think about how long it would take for others to cultivate to his level. Billions of years? Tens of billions? Or even hundreds of billions of years? What about him? His speed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. The time he had cultivated was only less than 20,000 years. With such a speed, he still felt that it was slow. If those immortal supremes knew what Murong-yu was thinking, they would most likely not be able to resist the urge to slap him to death. Murong-yu cultivated for about a month, but there was still no sign of a breakthrough in the chaotic heavenly body record. Finally, Murong-yu had no choice but to stop cultivating. The way to increase one's strength is not just to break through the realm. There are other ways. For example, possessing other powers. Young Master, Black Lotus's space law is very good. If you can learn it, your strength will definitely increase dramatically. At this moment, Steward Tion's voice sounded in Murong-yu's ears. Young Master, Steward Tion's words are right. If you can really control the space law, even if you still have not broken through the realm, your self-defense ability and lethality will skyrocket by many times. Hichu's voice also appeared in Murong-yu's mind. Space law. Murong-yu's eyes suddenly emitted a bright divine light. Murong-yu had seen how powerful Black Lotus's space law was. It could even be said that Murong-yu had been spying on the space law for a long time. It cannot be helped. It was impossible for Murong-yu not to be tempted by the space law. He even had a guess that the reason why little Z was so powerful should be related to the space law. Black Lotus would not use the power of the space law to kill, but he could use the power of the space law to defend. Moreover, Murong-yu believed that Black Lotus would not use the space law to attack, but it did not mean that the power of the space law could not be used. Perhaps Black Lotus did not know how to use it, or he did not use it to attack. The space law had an extremely terrifying defensive function, and the control of space was also very abnormal. It was the best cultivation method for escaping and tracking. Murong-yu guessed that the attacking means of the space law must be very terrifying. I don't know if Black Lotus will teach me the space law, or if I can cultivate it. Murong-yu muttered in his heart and began to transmit his voice to Black Lotus. After a while, Black Lotus's faint fluctuation came. Black Lotus, I want to ask, can others learn the space law of yours? Can I learn it? Murong-yu got straight to the point. Yes. Black Lotus's faint psychic fluctuation came, and Murong-yu suddenly became excited. However, Black Lotus's next sentence made Murong-yu depressed. The general meaning was that Black Lotus could teach Murong-yu the cultivation method of the space law, but whether Murong-yu could cultivate it depended on his character. Black Lotus, my character is not bad. Can you teach me the kung fu? Let me try and see if I can cultivate it. After Murong-yu said this, Black Lotus did not respond for a long time. Just when Murong-yu thought that Black Lotus had changed his mind, Black Lotus's faint psychic fluctuation came over. At the same time, some memories and information directly appeared in Murong-yu's mind. Black Lotus, thank you. Murong-yu thanked Black Lotus, and then began to read the memories that Black Lotus had passed over. But soon, a look of horror appeared on his face. The space law, so that's it. Why didn't I think of it? Murong-yu suddenly laughed. The space law, it turns out to be one of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. The Zai formula of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. Murong-yu laughed in his heart. Chapter 620. Between heaven and earth, there were 9 very magical words. These 9 words formed 9 cultivation techniques. Even if one could obtain one of the 9 words and cultivate it to a high level, it was enough to dominate the world. Lin Bing Do, Zhe Zhen Lai Zai Qian. These 9 words were known as the 9 syllables mantra. It was one of the most supreme cultivation techniques in the world. When Murong-yu was in the Huaxia cultivation world, he was lucky enough to obtain the Bing formula of the 9 syllables mantra in the depths of the Demon Mountain. The Bing formula focused on speed. The so-called fast as a dart referred to the Bing formula. After obtaining the Bing formula, Murong Yu's speed became extremely terrifying. Even experts who were several realms higher than him could not catch up to him in terms of speed. In fact, when Murong Yu arrived in the celestial realm, the soldier character formula had evolved into the welcoming light shadow. Its speed had increased by 100 times, or even more. The phantom light wings allowed Murong Yu to have the speed of an immortal king realm expert when he was in the mystic immortal realm. One could only imagine how terrifying the Bing formula was. After that, in the extreme celestial realm, Murong Yu obtained the Do formula after killing the extreme celestial realm expert. The Bing formula focused on speed, while the Do formula focused on strength. It increased strength. As long as he used the Do formula, he could increase his strength beyond his original peak strength. For example, under normal circumstances, Murong Yu could only exert the combat strength of 7,500 coil dragon strength. However, if he used the Do formula, his strength could be increased beyond 7,500 combat strength. As Murong Yu's understanding of the Do formula deepened, his combat strength could be increased even more. Now, Murong Yu obtained the Zai formula of the 9 syllables mantra. The Zai formula was the main space and space rules. Murong Yu did not know how Black Lotus obtained the Zai formula, because Black Lotus did not tell him. However, this was not what Murong Yu cared about. He was now in a state of excitement. In addition to the Zai formula, he had obtained 3 words of the 9 syllables mantra, which was 1/3 of the total. This was something that had never happened before in history. The soldier formula made Murong Yu's speed unparalleled in the world. The battle character art allowed Murong Yu to unleash a power that exceeded his peak. In the word formula, it would allow Murong Yu to comprehend the laws of space and the power of space. Although the Zai character formula didn't have any powerful killing moves or ultimate moves, if Murong Yu could comprehend the Zai character formula, his killing power would be at least 10 times more terrifying than it was now. I've already cultivated 2 characters of the 9 Suns mantra. Since I can cultivate the soldier and Do formula, I should be able to cultivate the character formula as well. Murong Yu thought to himself as he tried to calm himself down. However, even with Murong Yu's self-control, it took him a long time to calm down from the excitement of obtaining the 9 words mantra. Then, Murong Yu began to comprehend the Zai formula. Just like the Bing and Do character formulas, there were only a few lines in the character formulas. However, the amount of information it contained was extremely terrifying and difficult to understand. Even with Murong Yu's experience in cultivating the soldier and Do formulas, it still took him 3 years to comprehend the basic meaning of the few words in the soldier and Do formulas. However, this was only a preliminary understanding. It was extremely difficult for Murong Yu to cultivate it. After comprehending the mystery of the character formula, Murong Yu didn't immediately cultivate it. Instead, he went to see Yu Mengqing. At this time, Yu Mengqing was still cultivating. 3 years had passed, and her shattered soul had been almost completely healed by the power of the soul grass. She believed that it wouldn't take long for her soul to fully recover. As for Zhao, Jiqing, and the others, they were still cultivating in the heavenly punishment world. Then, Murong Yu returned to the immortal world, Chaos Shenzhen, the celestial palace, and the heavenly court. After arranging things, he entered the Hichu, Luoshu world and began to cultivate. Time passed little by little. Year after year passed. Yu Mengqing's soul had been completely restored by the soul grass. However, because Murong Yu was cultivating in seclusion, she couldn't leave the Hichu, Luoshu world. 5 years, 10 years. Murong Yu had been comprehending and cultivating the character formula for 10 years. In these 10 years, Murong Yu had been sitting in a cross-legged position without moving. He didn't even open his eyes. On this day, Murong Yu's eyes, which had been closed for 10 years, finally opened. He first heaved a sigh of relief. Then, a helpless expression appeared on his face. The law of space is really difficult to cultivate. In 10 years, Murong Yu had theoretically grasped the mysteries of the character formula. However, he still couldn't get started. However, Morong wasn't in a hurry. The two laws of space and time were two of the most powerful laws. Similarly, they were extremely difficult to cultivate. It wasn't like other character formulas like the fighting formula and the army formula. Although the army formula and the battle formula were supreme, it wasn't difficult for Morong to cultivate them with his aptitude and comprehension. However, in terms of the character formula and the law of space, it was at least 100 times more difficult than cultivating the army formula and the battle formula. Moreover, most importantly, Morong knew nothing about the law of space. Moreover, he had no one to guide him. He had to rely on himself to explore everything. As for Black Lotus, he didn't know how to guide him at all. After all, Black Lotus wasn't a cultivator. His spiritual sense was still very weak. Black Lotus cast another space shield. Morong said to Black Lotus in his heart helplessly. Before Morong could finish his words, a layer of ripples appeared in the space around him, and he disappeared. The space around Morong didn't seem to have any abnormalities either. It was as if nothing had happened. However, Morong didn't think so. Just because he couldn't see it didn't mean it didn't exist. He knew that a spatial barrier had enveloped his entire body. If there was any force that attacked Morong, it would be blocked by the shield. And the spatial barrier that was attacked would also ripple, just like in the immortal land. Space, what is space? Space is everything except for the tangible matter. This world is a huge space. Even if it's a material, like a person, there is space in their body. For example, the soul space and the Dantian space. Wherever there is a gap, it's called space. Space is everywhere. Everything is in the space. Morong muttered to himself and talked about his understanding of space. In space, all matter should be restricted by space. This restriction is called the power of space and the law of space. Any existence that doesn't follow the law of space can't survive. Just like in a mortal world, the mountains on the ground couldn't exceed a certain height. Even the highest mountain couldn't be compared with the mountains in the immortal world. This was the law of space of the mortal world. If one could control the law of space, they could change the way these existences and matter existed. They could use the power of space to create or destroy. If one wants to control the power of space, then one must integrate with space and become a part of it. Thinking of this, Morong's eyes suddenly burst out with a bright divine light. He seemed to have understood something, but when he wanted to grasp it, he couldn't. Morong closed his eyes again and stretched out his hands to resist the invisible space shield that Black Lotus applied to his body. Space was clearly formless, but the space shield was a tangible existence. Invisible, tangible, not existing but real. If he wanted to merge with space, he'd have to transform himself from corporeal to formless. If he wanted to use the power of space, he'd have to transform himself from formless to corporeal. Morong kept repeating this sentence in his heart. Gradually, a trace of comprehension appeared in his mind. Morong also took the opportunity to quickly grasp this trace of understanding and began to understand it more thoroughly. At this time, if someone was next to Morong, they would see that Morong's body was gradually becoming transparent. This didn't mean that Morong had really become transparent. Instead, some parts of Morong's body were gradually integrating with space, gradually becoming one with it. Time continued to pass, and Morong's body became more and more transparent. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, Morong's whole body completely disappeared. However, if someone could see Morong, they would find that he was still sitting cross-legged on the ground, and even his posture hadn't changed. Was Morong completely transparent, or was he invisible? In fact, Morong's body was still the same as before. There was no change, and he wasn't invisible. The reason why he disappeared was because he had integrated with space. It was like a person gradually walking from the light into the darkness. After being completely submerged by the endless darkness, that person naturally seemed to have disappeared. But in fact, that person still existed in space. The principle was the same. At this moment, Murong Yu finally grasped his own trace of understanding and officially understood the space law. Of course, it was just a little bit, and it was still very simple and crude. So that's how it is. That's how it is. Ha! Murong Yu suddenly laughed out loud. Along with his loud laughter, his figure appeared once again. Murong Yu laughed a few times and slowly raised his right hand. Then he used the understanding he had just gained on his right hand. Therefore, Murong Yu's right hand began to slowly disappear under his gaze. But he felt that his hand didn't change at all. It still existed. This is the space law, the power of space. Ha! Murong Yu laughed again because he finally understood the space law, although it was just a little bit, and he hadn't even reached the beginner level. Chapter 6:21. Murong Yu did not slack off after mastering the spatial rules of order. Instead, he continued to cultivate. As his understanding of the spatial rules of order deepened, he became more and more shocked. Spatial shield. Murong Yu shouted in his heart and waved his hand. Instantly, an invisible spatial shield covered his entire body. Although it could not be seen with the naked eye, it really existed. The so-called spatial shield works on the same principle as other shields. Murong Yu waved his hand and used the chaotic energy to create a shield on the surface of his body. Because it was the chaotic energy, the shield was black and could be seen at a glance. The same principle, but the power they use is different. Therefore, the effect is different. Murong Yu muttered in his heart and continued. The chaotic energy is a shield formed by other powers. When it is attacked, it can only passively defend and take the attack. Once it reaches its limit, the barrier will shatter. However, the spatial shield is different. Using the power of space, once it is attacked, it can use the power of space to transfer the power of the attack away or even into the spatial turbulence. Murong Yu's eyes lit up. When he was in the immortal land, Murong Yu had thought of this possibility. Now that he had cultivated the spatial rules of order, he finally confirmed that his guess was correct. In this world, there were actually two layers of space. The first layer was a very calm space, just like the world that Murong Yu and the rest lived in. Outside this layer of space, there was another space that was filled with violent power. That was the spatial turbulence. There was only a thin layer of spatial barrier between the spatial turbulence and the other spaces. Once this barrier was broken, one could enter the spatial turbulence. Back then, the spatial shield that Black Lotus created was very powerful. It directly transferred all the attacks that it encountered into the spatial turbulence. However, not everyone could do that. With Murong Yu's current ability, he could not transfer the attacks that the spatial shield suffered into the spatial turbulence. However, he could transfer to a nearby space. The spatial shield can strengthen my life-saving ability by many times. But how can I use the power of space to attack? Murong Yu frowned and pondered. Actually, the power of space and the power that I cultivate are basically the same. If I can control the power of space skillfully, I can use my own power to attack. Murong Yu pondered and continued to cultivate. Time flowed like water, and in the blink of an eye, another 10 years had passed. On this day, Murong Yu suddenly opened his eyes. At the same time, a smile appeared on his face. The power of space, I can use it, attack. Murong Yu, at the same time, he pointed at a mountain peak in front of him. When Murong Yu pointed his finger, a layer of ripples suddenly appeared in the space near the mountain. Following that, an earth-shattering explosion erupted from the mountain peak. Then, the entire peak mountain was the power of space. Under Murong Yu's control, the invisible power of space was used by him to attack directly. At this point, Murong Yu had finally cultivated the rules of space and the Zai word essence. Of course, if he wanted to be more powerful, he still needed time to refine it. Success! Murong Yu laughed. With a flash of his body, he disappeared from where he stood. Big gangster, look at how happy you are. Did you pick up a treasure again? Yu Mengqing rolled her eyes at Murong Yu when he appeared beside her. I'm happier than picking up a treasure. Mengqing, your soul should be fine, right? As he spoke, Murong Yu's divine thought had already entered Yu Mengqing's body. Yu Mengqing did not resist and allowed Murong Yu's divine thought to enter her soul space. It's as good as new without any damage. It's even stronger than before. The soul grass is indeed powerful. When he saw that not only was Yu Mengqing's soul not damaged, but it was even stronger, Murong Yu could not help but feel happy. Big gangster, thank you. Yu Mengqing kissed Murong Yu and smiled sweetly. You really want to thank me? This is not enough. Murong Yu patted Yu Mengqing's perky butt and chuckled. Then, he picked up Yu Mengqing and disappeared. Not long after, there was a burst of unsuitable sounds for children. After the two of them fought for a few hours, Yu Mengqing snuggled in Murong Yu's arms and drew circles on Murong Yu's chest with her small hand. At the same time, she said faintly, "Big gangster, my strength is still too weak. I want to cultivate. Can I go to another space to cultivate?" Yu Mengqing's strength was not high. She was only a golden immortal, and she did not have a monstrous physique like Murong Yu, who could kill people above his level. Moreover, all these years she had not been able to cultivate because of her broken soul. The gap between her strength and that of Murong Yu and the rest was getting bigger and bigger. This made her a little depressed. "Okay, no problem. I'll send you there in a moment." Murong Yu chuckled and covered Yu Mengqing's chest with his big hand again. "But before that, shouldn't you satisfy your husband?" As he spoke, Murong Yu turned over and pressed Yu Mengqing under his body. "Big gangster, this time I'm on top." Yu Mengqing's face flushed red. Then, while Murong Yu was still in shock, she had already turned over and pressed Murong Yu on top of her body. After sending Yu Mengqing to Tian Fa World, Murong Yu left Tian Fa World. As for Zhao Jiqing and the rest, they had been cultivating inside and were unwilling to come out. However, when they all knew that Yu Mengqing's soul had been completely restored, they were all very happy. After gathering for a few days, they separated again. "This damned big black dog. Why hasn't he woken up yet?" Murong Yu came to the big black dog's side and rolled his eyes. It had been a few decades since this fellow ate until he was full. If it were not for the fact that the big black dog's aura was getting stronger and stronger, Murong Yu would even suspect that this fellow had been sealed by someone. As Murong Yu spoke, the big black dog, who had been in a deep sleep, suddenly opened his eyes. "Woof, woof, woof. Who's cursing Lord Heavenly Dog? Don't you want to live anymore?" Then, the big black dog saw Murong Yu standing in front of him and staring at him. "Woof." When the big black dog saw Murong Yu, not only did he not shut up, he even barked wildly and charged towards Murong Yu. Along the way, he slapped out with his dog paw, shattering the void and directly attacking Murong Yu. Murong Yu chuckled. "Big black dog, although you've reached the late stage of the 9 heavens mystic immortal realm, you want to fight me? Are you looking for a beating? Recently, I've made some progress in my cultivation. Today, I'll use you to practice." As he spoke, Murong Yu had already formed a spatial barrier around his body. "Although I'm only at the late stage of the 9 heavens mystic immortal realm, I dare to fight even celestial kings," the big black dog said. Although Murong Yu did not move, his attack did not stop. On the contrary, he attacked even more fiercely towards Murong Yu. This was because he knew how freakish Murong Yu's strength was. Pong! The big black dog's attack was very fierce. When he slapped out with his paw, even the void was shattered. However, when his paw was not far from Murong Yu's body, he felt that he had slapped an extremely hard object. Layers of ripples immediately appeared on the spatial barrier when it was attacked. At the same time, Murong Yu began to circulate the power of space and began to redirect the attacks. Chi-chi, streams of power were constantly being redirected by Murong Yu. Suddenly, with Murong Yu as the center, the space around him began to shatter. This was the power of the big black dog's attack. After being redirected by Murong Yu, it directly shattered the space around him. However, Murong Yu, who was at the center of it, was completely unharmed. What kind of cultivation technique is this? The big black dog was shocked. Then, he shouted loudly and pounced forward again. Boom, boom, boom. Like a violent storm, attacks poured down crazily, continuously bombarding the spatial barrier. Layers of ripples appeared on the spatial barrier, like ripples on the surface of water. And under Murong Yu's control, the power of the big black dog's attacks was completely redirected. The space around Murong Yu was continuously shattered by the terrifying power, but Murong Yu was still unmoved. Damn it, I'm not fighting anymore. The big black dog attacked for a long time, and the more he attacked, the more depressed he became. In the end, he even said in a muffled voice and directly stopped attacking. Not bad, but I don't know what the limit of my attacks is. Celestial Duke? After being attacked by the big black dog's frenzied attacks, Murong Yu also realized how powerful his spatial barrier was. However, he also didn't know what the limit of his spatial barrier was. However, he was confident that Celestial King Tier elites wouldn't be able to break through his spatial barrier. Old Black, did you have fun fighting just now? Don't just hit me, it's my turn. Murong Yu looked at the big black dog and chuckled. The big black dog rolled his eyes. How was he having fun? He was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood and die. However, before he could say anything, he instinctively felt a strong sense of danger descend from the sky. The big black dog was shocked, and his figure swayed, and he directly retreated explosively. At the same time that he retreated, the ground where he had just been was instantly pulverized by a formless power. It was formless and intangible, and he couldn't even feel the fluctuations of power. However, the power that it contained was extremely terrifying, and it was enough to injure the big black dog. Moreover, this was because Murong Yu wasn't trying to kill him. A hint of shock flashed through the big black dog's eyes as he looked at Murong Yu. What kind of cultivation technique was this? Chapter 622. While the large black dog was shocked, Murong Yu smiled faintly. He roared, "Oh well, Black, eat my fist." A hint of confusion flashed across the large black dog's eyes. This was because he hadn't seen Murong Yu move at all. Murong Yu also hadn't released any energy fluctuations from his body. He hadn't moved, nor had he released any energy fluctuations, so how had he attacked? Could it be that he was just bluffing? However, just as the large black dog was feeling confused, an extremely dangerous aura suddenly came crashing down from above his head. The large black dog was shocked. His body swayed, and he immediately retreated explosively. However, he wasn't as lucky as he had been before this time. Just as the large black dog was retreating, an invisible fist condensed from the power of space had already come crashing down from above his head. Boom! At this moment, the large black dog suddenly felt as if a divine mountain had fallen from the sky and smashed into his body. The terrifying power instantly smashed the large black dog to the ground. This wasn't the end of it. Powerful energy continued to erupt, and it actually smashed the large black dog deep into the ground. Fortunately, Murong Yu wasn't trying to kill the large black dog, so he hadn't used too much power. However, even so, the large black dog was still smashed into the ground and almost fainted. He was blasted several thousand kilometers deep into the ground. Woof, woof, woof. The large black dog laughed maniacally. Power erupted from his body, shattering the ground as he soared into the sky. Then he also unleashed his maximum power. He transformed into a black streak of light and pounced toward Murong Yu. Spatial barrier. Murong Yu smiled faintly and pointed a finger. Pung! A transparent wall appeared out of thin air between the large black dog and Murong Yu, blocking the large black dog's path. The large black dog wasn't able to stop in time, and his entire body instantly crashed heavily into the spatial barrier. The powerful force caused layers of ripples to appear on the spatial barrier. In fact, an extremely strong rebounding force even sent the large black dog flying. What's going on? The large black dog was dizzy from the collision, and he didn't know what was going on. Spatial shackle, Murong Yu shouted. Instantly, layers of ripples appeared in the space around the large black dog. Then, the large black dog discovered in shock that it seemed as if he had been frozen. His entire body had been sealed, and he couldn't move. However, he saw that there was nothing around him. There were only layers of ripples in the space around him. There were no energy fluctuations. This time, the large black dog was completely dumbfounded. Woof! What's going on? The large black dog looked at Murong. He was confused. It's just spatial energy. Murong Yu faintly smiled. At the same time, he released his shackle. Although he was a powerful immortal's power, if he unleashed his full power, of course immortal's T, even so, Murong Yu was still able to easily imprison him. Of course, if Murong Yu wanted to kill the large black dog, Murong Yu could also easily kill him. In other words, with Murong Yu's current power of space, there was no doubt that he could kill a Celestial King tier elite. However, would he be able to fight a Celestial Duke? A sliver of anticipation appeared in Murong Yu's heart. In fact, he was even more eager to battle a Celestial Duke. Should I go to the Heavenly Punishment Realm and battle a Celestial Duke? This thought flashed through Murong Yu's mind. In the Heavenly Punishment Realm, Murong Yu had an undying body. Only in this way could Murong Yu fight more fearlessly. In this way, he would be able to unleash more of his power. However, Murong Yu thought for a moment and suppressed this thought. Now wasn't a good time. After all, he had already been in seclusion for several decades, and the three forces under him most likely had many matters to deal with. The rules of space. Hearing Murong Yu's words, the large black dog's eyes flashed with a touch of horror. He also knew about the rules of space, but he didn't expect Murong Yu to be able to control the power of space. This was really shocking. I've only scratched the surface. Well, old black, you've been in seclusion for several decades. If there's nothing else, come out with me. While speaking, Murong Yu and the large black dog's figures flashed and disappeared. When Murong Yu reappeared, he was already in the heavenly court. The moment he appeared, Murong Yu's huge divine sense spread out. With this, Murong Yu's face revealed a touch of surprise. Feng City was bigger than before he went into seclusion. It had expanded a lot, and there were more and more experts in Feng City. Most of these people came because of the fame. Presumably, there should be many experts who joined the heavenly court. As soon as Murong Yu appeared, Ming Ji's divine sense swept over. Seeing that it was Murong Yu, he withdrew his divine sense after greeting him. As for the only celestial emperor in the heavenly court, Xiahou Zhua, he was in seclusion, refining the emperor weapon. Woof! Master, is this the force you founded? For several decades, the large black dog had been in a deep slumber and knew nothing about the heavenly court. Murong Yu nodded. Then, the large black dog showed an excited expression. Can I be an official? Like a guardian or an elder? Murong Yu rolled his eyes. With the large black dog's character, if he really became a guardian or an elder, he would definitely make the heavenly court a mess. Old Black, you'd better do your duty and guard the door for me, Murong Yu said with a smile. Woof! I'll bite you to death. The large black dog was instantly furious. With a loud roar, he pounced at Murong Yu, wanting to viciously bite him a few times. However, to his dismay, Murong Yu pointed a finger at him, and he was imprisoned again. Although he was powerful and had the ability to devour heaven and earth, in front of Murong Yu, he was a hero who had no place to display his abilities. Fine, I'll guard the door. After Murong Yu released him, the large black dog shook his head and turned into a flash of black light, rushing over. However, Murong Yu didn't believe that he would really guard the door. This guy was probably going to cause trouble. However, in Murong Yu's territory, even if the sky collapsed, he would hold it up. No matter what the large black dog did, it didn't matter. After the large black dog left, Murong Yu summoned Black Tiger and the others. These 7 guys were all elders of the heavenly court. Although their strength was relatively low, and they were only in the Celestial King tier. Greetings, my lord. The 7 of them entered the palace and bowed respectfully to Murong Yu. Now, they were completely in awe of Murong Yu. The reason was none other than the rapid development of the heavenly court. According to their previous forces, even if they were 10,000 times stronger, they still couldn't compare to the current heavenly court. Moreover, all of this had only happened a few decades ago. Even if they didn't admire Murongyu, they had to. Murongyu nodded and said, "How has the heavenly court been developing recently? I see that Feng City has become much bigger, and there are many more elites. My lord, in these few decades, our heavenly court has continued to recruit a large number of disciples. There are now 1,000 celestial king tier cultivators. There are also more than 100 celestial lords. As for celestial emperor tier cultivators, there aren't many. There are only 3 more people." Meow, he stepped forward with a smile on his face, but he was also extremely respectful. A strange look flashed in Murongyu's eyes. The heavenly court's development had exceeded his imagination. Before he went into seclusion, the heavenly court only had 300 celestial kings, 20 celestial lords, and only 1 celestial emperor, Xiaohua. Now, the number of celestial king tier cultivators had doubled, and there were 700 more. The number of celestial lords had also doubled, and there were 70 more. What surprised Murongyu the most was that there were 3 more celestial emperors who had joined the heavenly court. Including Xiaohua, there were now 4 celestial emperors in the heavenly court. Such strength was enough to become a first-rate force in the celestial world. In addition, the elites in Feng City have a good impression of our heavenly court. These people are on good terms with our heavenly court. If there aren't any accidents, they won't leave Feng City in the future. In other words, although these people didn't join the heavenly court and become a part of it, they had already begun to see Feng City as their home. Once they saw Feng City as their home and felt a sense of belonging, how could they stand by and do nothing if Feng City was attacked? There wasn't much difference between this and joining the heavenly court. However, my lord, although our heavenly court has grown stronger, we have also encountered a problem. It is the problem of insufficient resources. After all, our heavenly court is not as strong as those large forces with deep foundations. They have various industries and large amounts of income to support the operation of their forces. Our heavenly court doesn't have such a foundation, and everything is built from scratch. Therefore, there's a shortage of all kinds of resources. If this continues, I am worried. Fengshen took a step forward and said in a deep voice. At the same time, a look of worry flashed across the faces of the other 6. Murongyu smiled faintly and said, "You guys just focus on developing the heavenly court. Just leave the matter of resources to me." This problem wasn't a problem for Murongyu at all, because he didn't have much, but he had a lot of resources. One must know that he had the entire Tian Fa world as his backing. The resources of a world were Murongyu's. If it couldn't be supplied to the heavenly court, then it was impossible. However, the heavenly court is now on the right track. Slow down the speed of recruitment. In the future, the conditions will be even stricter. Murongyu said in a deep voice. He didn't want bad people to appear everywhere in the heavenly court. When the time came, he would have to clean up. After the 7 of them discussed some matters of the heavenly court, Murongyu let them leave. The rapid development of the heavenly court must have attracted the attention of some people. However, if anyone dares to have any ideas about the heavenly court, he will definitely regret it. Murongyu said with a sneer in his heart, "My lord, I forgot to report something just now. 20 years ago, 2 seriously injured young men came to Feng City, saying that they were friends of the Lord. However, we were unable to determine their identity, but we also did not expel them. Were their names?" Murongyu frowned. He didn't have many friends. Yes, there were more enemies. It seems to be called Li Su. Chapter 623. Li Su, heavily injured? Murongyu frowned when he heard Black Tiger's words. If the other party was really Li Su, then he should be his friend. Among the people he knew, only the head disciple of the Hidden Fairy Valley was called Li Su. Their relationship was also very good. Li Su was one of Murongyu's few friends. "Take me to see him." Murongyu's face darkened. According to Black Tiger, Li Su was heavily injured and came to seek refuge with him. 20 years had already passed, and he wondered how their injuries were doing. If something happened because they couldn't find Murong-yu would feel guilty. At the same time, Murong-yu's heart burst with killing intent. Who was it that injured Li Su? Murong-yu knew Li Su's personality. He was the kind of person who would never seek refuge with Murong-yu unless he had nowhere else to go. Although Li Su was easygoing, he was arrogant by nature. Feng City, in one of the dilapidated courtyards. At this time, two youths were looking at each other with bitter expressions. Li Su, it's been 20 years. We've used up all our resources. Is the master of the heavenly court Murong-yu? Is that the Murong-yu we know? A tall and sturdy young man asked a more ordinary-looking young man in a deep voice. Little Ape King, calm down. We don't know if this Murong-yu of the heavenly court is our friend or not. However, other than waiting here, what else can we do? With our strength? We can only die. Li Su frowned. He coughed a few times as he spoke. His face was frighteningly pale. It was as if he had yet to recover from his injuries. Calm down? I don't think the people of the heavenly court notified us at all. Otherwise, shouldn't you give us an answer instead of making us wait here? The little Ape King said irritably, his face full of anger. Unfortunately, our words carry little weight. We don't even have the qualifications to join the heavenly court. What's more, we're heavily injured. Li Su sighed helplessly. 20 years ago, the two of them finally arrived at the heavenly court after going through many hardships. However, he was told that Murong-yu was not in the heavenly court. Instead, he was in seclusion. The other party told them that they could stay in Feng City for the time being if there was something important. They would be informed when Murong-yu came out of his closed-door training. Therefore, they decided to stay in Feng City and waited for 20 years. They were not like Murong-yu, who was doing so well. In the immortal world, they had no relatives or friends. Wherever they went, they had to fight for themselves. Even when they left Shenzhen, Murong-yu had given them a lot of resources. However, over the years, they had already exhausted these resources. In fact, their current predicament was that they no longer had immortal meridians or immortal spirit pills. Without pills and immortal meridians to replenish their energy, it would be even harder for them to heal their internal injuries. In fact, as time went on, their injuries would only worsen. The consequences would be unpredictable. If this goes on, we'll definitely die. Little Ape King was still a little irritable. Calm down, there's no point in us being anxious. Apart from Murong-yu, who else has the ability to save Little Lion King and the others? Li Su frowned. Why don't we go back to Shenzhen again? Little Ape King said uncertainly. Li Su shook his head and rejected Little Ape King's suggestion. Murong-yu rarely spends time in Shenzhen. Moreover, as long as Murong-yu is in Shenzhen, he'll come find us when he hears about us. Li Su was also helpless. Before coming to the heavenly court, they had gone to Shenzhen in the South Mountain Range. However, they were told that Murong-yu was often not there. As for whether Murong-yu in the heavenly court was the Holy Lord of Shenzhen, Duan Muqing and the others did not know. Therefore, they could only try their luck and come to the heavenly court. It's been 20 years. I wonder how Little Lion King and the others are doing. Little Ape King paced around the house in irritation, extremely irritable. What happened? A low and deep voice suddenly sounded. While Li Su and Little Ape King were stunned, a black-clothed youth appeared in front of them. Murong-yu. When they saw who it was, Li Su and Little Ape King could not help but exclaim. Then, their faces were filled with excitement. You finally appeared. If you didn't appear, we'd all be dead. Little Ape King looked at Murong-yu and said excitedly. The person who had come was Murong-yu. However, Murong-yu did not appear happy to see an old friend. Instead, his expression was gloomy. This was because he saw that Little Ape King and Li Su's situation was not very good. Not to mention that the environment they lived in was not very good. Just the injuries on their bodies made Murong-yu frown. The injuries on their bodies were very serious. Their meridians were broken, the flow of energy was blocked, and the energy in their bodies was in a mess. Their bodies could be said to be riddled with holes. Moreover, the situation was constantly worsening. What happened? Why are you injured like this? What happened to Little Lion King and the others? Murong said with a gloomy face. Little Lion King and the others were Murong friends. He would definitely not allow anything to happen to them. Something happened to Little Lion King and Golden Lion King. In fact, the two of us only managed to escape with our lives. Li Su said with an ugly expression. Tell me, who is the other party? Murong killing intent surged, and endless killing intent surged out. Murong, tell me first, are you the master of the heavenly court? Little Ape King was about to say something when he was stopped by Li Su's voice transmission. Li Su looked at Murong and asked, although Murong was much stronger than them, if Murong was not the master of the heavenly court, there was no need for him to tell Murong about Little Lion King, because even if he told Murong, it would be useless. And with Murong's personality, he would definitely save Little Lion King and the others. The other party was very strong. If Murong did not have the strength, he would only be sending himself to death. They were not willing to put more friends in danger in order to save a friend. Of course, if Murong was the master of the heavenly court, then it would be a different story. I'm the master of the heavenly court. Even if the other party is the immortal palace, I am not afraid. Li Su, hurry up and tell me what's going on. Murong felt that something was amiss. More than 20 years ago, the few of us went together to train in the immortal world and went to Bamboo Province. When we were in Bamboo City, we met the Golden Lion King who had ascended before us. Little Ape King's face revealed an angry expression when he said this. Originally, we should be very happy to see an acquaintance. Moreover, it was our senior. But we were not happy at all. That was because the Golden Lion King had actually been captured and raised like a pet. Those bastards kept the old Lion King as a lowly animal and treated him as a pet, a lowly mount. We were angry at that time and immediately negotiated with them to let go of the old Lion King. At this time, Li Su also gritted his teeth and said, but the other party was very disdainful and even wanted Little Ape King and Little Lion King to become their pets and mounts. This was an insult to us. Of course, we cannot agree. Although we knew that we were not their match, we still could not control the anger and killing intent in our hearts and directly fought with them. Little Ape King gritted his teeth and said. At this time, Li Su said, but we were not their match. Little Lion King was captured by them, while Little Ape King and I risked our lives to escape. Even so, we were seriously injured. Murong's eyes shot out a cold light. Bamboo Province, Bamboo City, what kind of family are they? Daring to treat my friends like this. I want them to completely disappear from the immortal world. Murong said with killing intent. Endless killing intent spread out. Even though it was just a few words from Li Su and Little Ape King, Murong had a rough idea of who the other party was. They were definitely not good people. At the very least, the person who kept the old Lion King in captivity was not a good person. This kind of person deserved to be killed. They seem to be from a family called He Family. They are very powerful in Bamboo City. They seem to be a first-rate power or something. Li Su said with a gloomy expression. This kind of power was an existence they looked up to. If they did not know that Murong had an immortal emperor in the heavenly court, they would not have come to Murong for help. After all, no matter how strong Murong was, he was not a match for a first-rate family. He Family, is it? Let's go and destroy them. Murong was filled with killing intent and turned to leave. AI Murong, He Family has many experts. Why don't you bring the heavenly court's experts over? Also, I heard that your medical skills are amazing and you are the famous divine Dr. Sacred Hands. Look at our injuries. When the time comes, we still have to kill a few He Family trash. Little Ape King said to Murong in a deep voice. Murong was a bit embarrassed. Just now, he was only concerned about saving Little Lion King and forgot that these two fellows were seriously injured. Your injuries are a small matter. With a divine doctor like me here, you can completely recover in half a day. However, let's go to the heavenly court first. Murong sent out 2 streams of life force to stabilize Li Su and Little Ape King's injuries. Then, he brought them back to the heavenly court. After returning, Yu immediately healed the injuries that had plagued Li Su and Little Ape King for more than 20 years. It did not even take half a day. At the same time, in the heavenly court, 20 immortal monarchs and 300 immortal kings had gathered. Even Xiahou Jua, who was in seclusion, was awakened by Yu. Yu didn't say anything. He simply said to them, "Save them. Kill them." Everyone was excited. This was their first large-scale operation after joining the heavenly court. And in their first operation, they were chosen by the heavenly court's master. This was their honor. Chapter 624. After putting everyone into the Hichu Luoshu world, Yu directly rushed to Bamboo Province. When they arrived at the city with the teleportation array, Yu let Xiahou Jua out. There was no other way. Although Yu was strong, he was only in the golden immortal realm. With such a realm, he was not qualified to use the teleportation array. Yu did not want any accidents to happen. Otherwise, he could use force. But that would cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. With the help of the teleportation array, Yu used a full month to enter Bamboo Province and arrived at Bamboo City. Bamboo Province was a very special province in the heavenly realm. Just as the words on the surface said, the entire Bamboo Province was a large province made of bamboo. In the Bamboo Province, there were not many other plants and trees. The only thing that existed was all kinds of bamboo. All kinds of bamboo formed a world of bamboo. And Bamboo City was a city made of bamboo. Here, whether it was in the mountains, behind the courtyard, or even the houses, they were all made of bamboo. The He clan was a big force in Bamboo Province, a first-rate force in the immortal realm. However, according to legend, the He clan was much stronger than ordinary first-rate forces. There was no other reason but because an old ancestor in the He clan had broken through to the immortal Emperor realm. If it was not for their foundation, the He clan would have become a first-rate force in the immortal realm. However, even if they were not a first-rate force, the He clan was still very powerful. They were an overlord of Bamboo Province. They almost controlled the entire Bamboo Province. Whoosh! Yu appeared in Bamboo City. Then, with a flash, Li Su and Little Ape King appeared beside him. At this time, their injuries had been healed and their strength had returned to the peak, reaching the profound immortal realm. After all, they were the proud sons of heaven in the Huaxia cultivation world. Their cultivation speed was naturally not slow. In a short period of time, they had already reached the profound immortal realm from the heavenly immortal realm. Their cultivation speed was also very fast and terrifying. Of course, they could not be compared to Yu. Bamboo City, we finally arrived. A wisp of fierce killing intent flashed through the Little Ape King's eyes as his entire body seethed with killing intent. Let's go to the He clan. You could not suppress the killing intent in his heart. The Ape King nodded and flew towards the He clan with Li Su. At the same time, Yu instructed Xiahou Jua to conceal his cultivation and quickly followed. However, after walking for a short distance, the Little Ape King and Li Su stopped. Yu saw the hatred in the Little Ape King and Li Su's eyes as they looked ahead. Yu's brows slightly creased as he followed their gazes, only to see a group of several dozen people slowly walking over. The person in the lead was a young man around the age of 25 or 26. His countenance was pale and gloomy while his eyes were dim and lusterless, and his strength was around the mysterious immortal realm. The weakest among them was an overarching heavenly supreme celestial, and the strongest among them was a 9 heavens mystic celestial. From the looks of it, these people were the young man's servants and subordinates. How could a mysterious immortal realm cultivator have such powerful subordinates and servants? Clearly, the young man's identity was not simple. A cold glint flashed across Yu's eyes. He did not know the young man's identity, but he could see the black halo around the young man's body. A black halo. The black halo around the young man's body was stronger than any of the villain's halos he had seen. In other words, the young man's villainous star was the highest he had seen so far. On top of that, The people behind the young man were also black. Their villainous stars were not low as well. When Murong and the others stopped, the young man stopped as well. Clearly, he had also noticed Murong and the others. To be more precise, he had also noticed the little ape king and Li Su. As for Murong, he was not from the demon clan, nor was he an acquaintance of the young man. He was not special, so it was only natural that the young man ignored him. "It's you two." When he saw the little ape king and Li Su, the young man's originally dim eyes immediately lit up. Then, he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. "So it's you two bastards. Men, capture them and make them my pets and mounts. Damn it, I didn't even get to share the 2 lions from before." Yang was very displeased. He was a direct descendant of the He clan. Although his strength was not high, his status was not low. Many years ago, his older brother had unintentionally captured a golden lion from the demon clan. He had forcefully subdued it and made it his mount. This made him very envious. Over 20 years ago, his older brother had captured another lion. That lion was the son of the lion from before. At that time, Hyang had wanted to obtain the little lion king. However, his older brother, He-hai, had monopolized it. There was nothing he could do. Although He-yang's status in the He clan was very high, his older brother's status seemed to be slightly higher than his. Thus, although Yang was resentful, there was nothing he could do about it. After all, his status and power were inferior to his older brother's. Today, Hyang, who was in a bad mood, was wandering around the city with a group of servants. He was looking for a few women to vent his anger. However, before he could find a woman that he liked, he saw the little ape king and Li Su. Hyang was naturally involved in the conflict over 20 years ago. Therefore, he naturally recognized the little ape king and Li Su. Moreover, he knew that the little ape king was also a demon. If he could take down the little ape king, then he would have a mount and pet that was not too weak. As for Li Su, murderous intent flashed through He Yang's eyes. He sneered and said, "Capture that demon and kill that human. Kill the 2 beside him as well." A cold light flashed through Murong Yu's eyes, and endless murderous intent surged from his heart. "Murong, this guy is someone from the He clan. His status seems to be quite high. The little lion king and the others were captured by his older brother." Speaking of this, the little ape king could not suppress his murderous intent. "If that's the case, then kill them all. However, don't do it. Xiao Zhua, just watch." Murong Yu sneered as he took a step forward and closed in on Hyang. These people were great villains. Killing them would earn him a lot of stars. Murong Yu would not let Xiao Zhua and the others do it. It would be too wasteful. "You're just a perfected golden immortal. You overestimate yourself." A 9 heavens Xian immortal looked at Murong Yu with disdain. While sneering, he slapped at Murong Yu, wanting to kill Murong Yu. Seeing Murong Yu walk out, the little ape king and Li Su were not worried at all. Although he didn't know how strong Murong Yu was, he had no idea. However, they knew that Xiao Zhua was an immortal emperor. As long as he was here, nothing would happen to Murong Yu. Is that so? Hearing the 9 heavens Xian immortal's disdainful words, Murong Yu could not help but laugh. For a long time, many people had looked down on his realm. However, they did not know that Murong Yu's realm and true strength were worlds apart. Moreover, the result of looking down on Murong Yu was the same death. The corner of Murong Yu's mouth curled into a sneer as he threw out a punch. Bang! The 9 heavens Xian immortal's hand was crushed into powder by Murong Yu's punch. At the same time, Murong Yu's divine fist was unimpeded as it blasted forward with an indomitable will. With a bang, the 9 heavens Xian immortal was killed. Even until his death, the 9 heavens Xian immortal did not understand what was going on. How did he die at the hands of a perfected golden immortal? This guy looks so strong, but he couldn't even take a punch from Murong. Is he just an embroidered pillow? Little Ape King had thought that the 9 heavens Xian immortal was very strong, but now it seemed that was not the case. He's a 9 heavens Xian immortal. Xiaohu's indifferent voice sounded in their ears. Both the Little Ape King and Li Su trembled. Then, their faces were filled with shock. a nine heavens Xian immortal, was a super expert in the world of immortals. However, he was killed by Murongyu with a single punch. It wasn't that he was too weak, but that Murongyu was too strong. Could it be that Murong had reached the Immortal King realm? Little Ape King and Li Su looked at each other in shock. The Holy Lord is still a perfected golden immortal. His strength does not match his realm. If anyone underestimates his realm, they will definitely die, Xiahou Zhuo explained. At that moment, Murongyu had already sent out a few punches in succession, killing all of He Yang's realm slaves. He Yang was the only one who was not killed. Murong, don't kill this bastard yet. I want to beat him up, Little Ape King said hatefully. If that's the case, then there's no problem. Murongyu lightly smiled. Then, with a tap of his finger, he imprisoned He Yang. How dare you kill my people? How dare you touch me? You're courting death. The He clan will never let you go. He Yang's eyes were filled with fear as he screamed in horror. Was every villain from a major faction like this? Murongyu's eyes flashed with disdain. With a thought, the world became quiet. He had also restricted He Yang's right to speak. Beat this bastard to death. Little Ape King and Li Su rushed up, venting all the anger they had held in for more than 20 years on He Yang. He Yang was beaten up badly by them, rolling on the ground in pain. What frightened He Yang the most was that although Little Ape King and Li Su were ruthless, they controlled their strength well. However, he was able to control his strength very well. His strength kept beating him up and injuring him, but he didn't kill him. When he was injured to a certain extent, He Yang felt a surge of energy enter his body. Then, his injuries were healed. This cycle repeated over and over again, making He Yang want to die. However, Little Ape King and Li Su didn't want him to die. Naturally, he couldn't die either. He could only take the beating from Little Ape King and Li Su. Chapter 625. After the beating, apart from his soul, there was no other part of He Yang's body that was intact. Moreover, this was due to Murongyu constantly using his life force to heal him. Otherwise, he would have long since died from the pain. However, Murongyu kept healing him. This was not for his own good, but to make him suffer even more pain. Chi! Murongyu's finger drew across the void, and a spatial energy cut off He Yang's head. Immediately, fresh blood spurted out from He Yang's neck and soared into the sky. He Yang's head was raised high. The Little Ape King reached out his hand and grabbed He Yang's head. Li Su, on the other hand, struck out with his palm, turning He Yang's body into dust. Let's go to the clan to give them a big gift. The Little Ape King vented his anger and flew towards the He clan with He Yang's head. With Murongyu and the immortal Emperor Xiahou Zhuo present, the Little Ape King and Li Su had nothing to fear. The Little Ape King carried He Yang's head and rushed toward the He clan. Along the way, many people saw Murongyu and the others who were filled with killing intent. When they saw He Yang's head in the Little Ape King's hand, they all knew that Bamboo City was about to change. He Yang was a person with a relatively high status in the He clan. Although he was not very strong, his status was there. Therefore, no one dared to do anything to him, even if he committed all sorts of atrocities. This was because he was from a He clan, and the He clan was the overlord of Bamboo City. Boom, boom, boom. Before Murongyu and the others arrived at the He family, they heard a series of intense energy explosions coming from up ahead. Waves of energy fluctuations were constantly transmitted to them. The He clan is up ahead. Could it be that other than us, there's someone else looking for trouble with the He clan? The Little Ape King said to Murongyu and the others in a deep voice. If that's the case, then we'll just take the opportunity to destroy the He clan, Li Su said calmly with killing intent in his eyes. As for Murongyu, since he had brought so many experts with him, he naturally wouldn't let the He clan off so easily. This time, not only did he want to save the Little Lion King and his son, but he also wanted the He family to pay a sufficient price. What was the price? That would depend on the He family's attitude. If their attitude satisfied Murongyu, Murongyu naturally wouldn't be too ruthless. If the He clan's attitude was bad, then sorry, The He clan might even be destroyed. Fight in front of the He family? This person was definitely here to cause trouble for the He family. Moronyu was also very interested in these people. Therefore, he used his ocean-like spiritual force to explore them. In front of the He family was a large empty square. At this moment, the plaza was already surrounded by immortals of various powers. In the crowd, two young men were fighting. One of them had a sinister face and looked somewhat similar to He Yang, who was holding the human head in the little ape king's hand. It should be He Yang's elder brother. He was much stronger than He Yang and had already reached the golden immortal realm. His opponent was also a young man in white. However, this young man's strength was a little weaker. He had only reached the early stage of the golden immortal realm. Even if he was strong and could kill people of a higher realm, his opponent was at the late stage of the golden immortal realm. Most importantly, the young man in white was already seriously injured. It's Li Ling. When Moronyu used his spiritual force to explore, he found that the young man in white was Li Ling. He was Li Feng's son. However, this guy was now in a precarious situation. He was seriously injured and was being suppressed by He Hai. If he couldn't leave this place, then his final outcome would definitely be very tragic. At this moment, Li Ling's heart was already filled with anger. He happened to pass by here and saw that the little Lion King had become He Hai's mount. One had to know that the little Lion King was Murongyu's friend, and Li Ling was Murongyu's nephew. In other words, the little Lion King was Li Ling's uncle. Li Ling naturally wouldn't let him go and directly challenged He Hai. He was at the early stage of the golden immortal realm, and He Hai was at the late stage of the golden immortal realm. Li Ling, a cultivator at the early stage of the golden immortal realm, wanted to challenge him. He didn't accept it against Chong Li's will. This was because he didn't think that Li Ling would be his opponent. Otherwise, if he thought that Li Ling had enough strength to threaten him, He Hai would definitely not accept Li Ling's challenge. However, what He Hai couldn't understand was that Li Ling's strength had exceeded his realm by so much. As soon as the battle began, He Hai found that he was being suppressed by Li Ling. Moreover, what made him most unhappy was that Li Ling was getting stronger as the battle went on. In the end, he was in danger and was almost killed by Li Ling. He Hai didn't want to die, so he sent a voice transmission to the 9 heavens Xian immortals of the He family to attack. The 9 heavens Xian immortals attacked Li Ling at the same time. Even if Li Ling was strong, how could he withstand the attacks of these 9 heavens Xian immortals at the same time? After persevering for a short while, Li Ling was heavily injured. After Li Ling was seriously injured, He Hai ordered the experts of the He family to stop attacking. He wanted to kill Li Ling himself. Such despicable actions made Li Ling very angry. But now he was forced to fight with He Hai. He couldn't escape at all. This was because the 9 heavens Xian immortals of the He family had their divine senses locked onto him. Once he left, they would immediately attack. These despicable and shameless bastards. Am I going to die here today? Am I going to lose my life here today? Am I going to be killed by these disgusting, despicable bastards? Li Ling thought to himself as he increased his strength to fight with He Hai. This bastard, he's seriously injured, but he's still so strong. Damn it! At this moment, Li Ling's opponent, He Hai, was cursing in his heart. Even if Li Ling was seriously injured, He Hai couldn't kill him. This was because he realized that Li Ling had a lot of Dharma treasures and weapons. Moreover, he had a lot of immortal spiritual pills and immortal meridians to replenish his strength. Should I let them continue attacking and beat him half to death first? He Hai muttered to himself. He was a little frustrated that he couldn't kill Li Ling after a long time. Little did he know that Li Ling was getting more and more anxious. He did have a lot of Dharma treasures, weapons, and even immortal meridians, but these couldn't help him break out of the encirclement. Most importantly, he was seriously injured. In the middle of the battle, he couldn't heal at all. Moreover, Li Ling didn't know when it started, but he realized that there was a very powerful divine sense locked onto him. It was at least of the Immortal King level. Once he tried to escape, this expert who had locked onto him would definitely kill him. I wonder if the Jade Slip Uncle gave me is useful. Uncle said that if I'm in danger and crush the jade slip, he'll be the first to come to my side. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's all I can do. Hold on a little longer. Damn it, these chaos. When this young master is strong enough one day, I will personally get rid of all these despicable and shameless clan. Li Ling. At this moment, Little Ape King and the others also saw Li Ling and saw that he was in danger. Morongyu, hurry up and attack. These family people are very shameless. I'm afraid something will happen to Li Ling, Li Su said in a low voice. Little Ape King, keep Yang's head first. We're not in a hurry to attack. Li Ling is very angry now. He needs to win this battle to release the anger in his heart. Morongyu sneered and strode into the crowd. How could Morongyu not know Li Ling's strength? He didn't believe that Li Ling's injuries were caused by Hiyang. Hiyang didn't have that ability. Morongyu's guess wasn't wrong. Little Ape King and Li Su looked at each other. Since Morongyu said so, they didn't say anything else. After all, Morongyu couldn't just watch Li Su attack. Damn it, I can't hold on anymore. If this continues, I'll die. No, I'll summon Uncle. I hope Uncle's jade bamboo strip can successfully summon Uncle. Otherwise, I'll be dead today. Uncle, I'm the son of your best friend, Li Feng. You must be summoned by me. Li Ling muttered in his heart. A jade bamboo strip had already appeared in his hand. Just as he was about to crush the jade bamboo strip, Li Ling felt a force full of vitality enter his body. Then, he was shocked to see that the injuries in his body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye under the effect of this force. Haha, I'm not destined to die yet. Which great god is secretly helping me? Since that's the case, I won't summon Uncle for now. I'll kill these F***curs first. In the blink of an eye, Li Ling's injuries were mostly healed. After his injuries were almost healed, Li Ling could use more and more strength. Boom! Li Ling's body shook violently. His injuries were finally healed. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura exploded from his body. Hi, you despicable bastard. Give me your life. After his strength was restored to its peak, Li Ling's battle-intense soared as he charged toward Hi. Quick attack. Hi was shocked when he sensed Li Ling's terrifying aura. He quickly sent a voice transmission to the few Nine Heavens Xian immortals outside, asking them to attack and injure Li Ling again. Morongyu snorted when he saw that the Nine Heavens Xian immortals were about to attack. He finally understood how Li Ling was injured. However, that was before. Now that he was here, how could he let Li Ling continue to be injured? He snorted coldly in his heart, and an invisible space covered the open space in the field. Bang! 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 Just as the space shield was cast, the Nine Heavens Xian immortals attacked. However, they were shocked to find that their attacks had been blocked. Chapter 6:26. Layers of ripples appeared in the void around the square. This was because the Nine Heavens Xian immortals from the He clan had attacked. These Nine Heavens Xian immortals wanted to use the same trick to severely injure Li Ling. However, their attacks had only reached halfway when they disappeared into thin air. All it could do was cause ripples to appear in space. What's going on? Everyone was shocked, especially the Nine Heavens Xian immortals who attacked, because they didn't notice anything blocking their path. They did not believe it and attacked again. However, they were shocked to see that the result was the same. Their strength could not even enter the square, much less attack Li Ling. Seeing this, many people were shocked. Only Li Ling laughed out loud. Li Ling had long experienced the shamelessness of the He family. Therefore, after his body was repaired by the expert who had saved him, he attacked Hi with all his might. However, he was wary of the Nine Heavens Xian immortals from the He clan. Just as he expected, the Nine Heavens Xian immortals attacked. Li Ling cursed in his heart. Just as he was wondering if the expert who had healed his injuries would intervene, he saw this scene. Hi, today is the day you die. Li Ling laughed out loud as he pounced towards Hi. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill him. At this time, Hi was scared stiff. When he saw Li Ling rushing over, he could only keep retreating. At the same time, he cursed to the He clan's experts. The nine heavens Xian immortals were furious, and their expressions were ugly. Immediately, waves of terrifying power burst out and bombarded Yifutian. However, Murong Yu's ingenious use of the spatial power transferred their power to a faraway place. They could not break the spatial shield at all. An expert is secretly helping that kid. Young master is in danger. Let's go back and report this. One of the nine heavens Xian immortals thought and flew back to the He clan. Try to leave? When the nine heavens Xian immortals attacked, Murong Yu had already locked onto them. Now, they wanted to run? How could he let them run away? What happened? The figure of the nine heavens Xian immortal from the He clan swayed. Just as he was about to soar into the sky, he found that he couldn't move. He had been imprisoned. At the same time, the other nine heavens Xian celestials of the He clan were also horrified. This was because they had all been imprisoned by Murong Yu. I'll let you be despicable and shameless. I'll let you be tyrannical. I'll let you be so ugly. I'll let you plot against me. I'll let you think of me. I'll let you... Damn it, I just don't like you. At this moment, Li Ling chased after Lin Fan relentlessly while growling. At this moment, He Hai was in a very sorry state. His strength was originally inferior to Li Ling's. At this moment, one of them was filled with fighting spirit, while the other had no fighting spirit at all. There was no suspense in the outcome. It was only a matter of time before He Hai was killed. Humph! At this moment, a muffled groan came from the He clan not far away. At the same time, a large hand reached out from the He family. With terrifying power, it crushed the space and slammed towards Li Ling, who was in the middle of battle. An immortal king. A cold light flashed through Murong Yu's eyes. The person who'd attacked was an immortal king. When the puppy is about to be killed, the old dog will come out. This is the He clan. Little Ape King said disdainfully. His voice wasn't loud, but it was just loud enough for the people around him to hear clearly. A dog will always be a dog, Li Su also said disdainfully. They were very displeased with the He clan. Moreover, it was even more disdainful for an immortal king to deal with a golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven. At the same time, most of the onlookers also revealed disdainful expressions. It was just that they didn't dare say it out loud, like Little Ape King. However, everyone knew what they were thinking. Xiahou Zhuo, don't make a move yet. Seeing that Xiahou Zhuo intended to make a move, Murong Yu hurriedly transmitted his voice. He'd yet to join forces with an immortal king after mastering the 5-character formula. Now it was the perfect time. Bang! The immortal king realm expert's huge hand, which carried a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, directly slapped down on the spatial barrier. Layers of ripples suddenly appeared in the void. However, the huge hand of the He clan's immortal king was blocked in the void. The violent power had been removed, and the immortal king's huge hand could no longer advance. What's going on? The immortal king of the He clan was shocked. Although he didn't use his full strength, that palm could even kill a peak 9 heavens Xian immortal. But now it was blocked in the void. There was nothing in the void. He couldn't even see any obstruction with his divine sense. However, the He clan immortal king clearly felt that his huge hand was blocked by a layer of transparent barrier. The immortal king snorted coldly and retracted his huge hand. Then, he condensed an even more powerful force and slapped down again. Just like the first time, other than causing more ripples to appear in the space, his large hand was still blocked, and the violent power was instantly neutralized. Boom, boom, boom. He slapped down a few times in a row, but he couldn't shake the spatial barrier at all, and the immortal king had already raised his strength to the limit. Swish! Finally, after failing to shake it a few times, the immortal king flew out of the He clan. Which senior is joking with me here? The immortal king looked like a middle-aged man. At this moment, he was scanning his surroundings with a gloomy expression. At the same time, he looked at He Hai, who was in the spatial barrier, with a worried expression. At this moment, He Hai was once again suppressed by Li Ling. He was about to be killed by Li Ling. Humph! Get down here. Murong Yu snorted coldly. Then, The immortal king of the He clan felt a terrifying force acting on his body. Then he couldn't help but, with a bang, his entire body fell to the ground in a dog-eat-shit posture. At this moment, the terrifying force still hadn't disappeared. It was like a divine mountain pressing down on his body, making him unable to move. Even his strength was imprisoned. This time, it wasn't Moron Yu who made a move, but Xiahou Zhuo. A mere immortal king dared to fly above him, an immortal emperor. This was a great disrespect to his status. Swish, swish, swish. When the immortal king of the He clan was suppressed on the ground, a few more figures flew out from the depths of the He clan. They didn't emit a powerful aura, but Xiahou Zhuo could tell their cultivation realm at a glance. They were all immortal monarchs. An immortal king was instantly suppressed, which made the experts of the He clan immediately know that an expert had made a move. And this expert was at least an immortal monarch. Friend who secretly attacked. This is the bamboo city of our He clan. Our He clan welcomes your arrival. However, we don't want to make things unpleasant, right? So, friend, please be magnanimous and let that idiot go. An immortal monarch of the He clan said in a deep voice. His voice wasn't loud, but it was extremely clear and spread far and wide. At this moment, an incomparably mournful voice was heard. The expressions of the few immortal monarchs of the He clan immediately changed because the scream came from He Hai. At this moment, He Hai was in a very sorry state. One of his arms had been blasted into powder by Li Ling. For experts of their level, losing an arm wasn't a problem. They could easily regenerate it. However, this was a fatal blow to He Hai, and his fighting spirit was instantly gone. Bang! At this moment, Li Ling rushed forward and sent He Hai flying with a punch. Then, he turned into a ray of white light and rushed forward, stomping He Hai to the ground. He Hai, I'll ask you again. Are you going to let Senior Lion King and the others leave? Li Ling looked at He Hai with murderous intent. If He Hai dared to say no, he would crush He Hai with his foot. Brat, how dare you? Seeing this scene, the few immortal monarchs of the He clan flew into a rage. They no longer cared about whether there were any experts around them. One of the immortal monarchs shouted angrily and stretched out his hand to grab Li Ling's Xiahou Zhuo. Stop him. When the immortal monarchs made their move, Moron Yu hurriedly transmitted a message to Xiahou Zhuo. He knew that his spatial shield was powerful and should be able to withstand the attack of an immortal monarchs. However, he didn't want to risk Li Ling's life. Once the spatial shield was broken, Li Ling would be in danger. Xiahou Zhuo nodded expressionlessly and then snorted coldly. Bang! The hand of the immortal monarchs was shattered. As for the immortal monarchs, his body trembled violently, as if he had been electrocuted. Finally, the immortal monarchs couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly turned pale. Seeing this scene, the He clan couldn't help but be shocked. This was because although the attacker was only an early-stage immortal monarchs, he was still an immortal monarchs. To be able to injure an immortal monarchs in an instant, who exactly was this person? Although the He clan didn't know who did it, they all knew that the person who secretly attacked was at least a late-stage immortal monarchs. Even the He clan didn't have many late-stage immortal monarchs. Even the He clan had to be careful when making an enemy of such a person. Who exactly was this person? When did the He clan offend such a person? Li Ling, kill He Hai. Just as Li Ling was about to interrogate He Hai and ask him to release the little Lion King and the others, a voice suddenly appeared in his mind. Li Ling was taken aback. Then, he reacted and was overjoyed. Then the power in his foot exploded. With a bang, He Hai was stomped to death. Chapter 627. You're too presumptuous. Seeing Li Ling stomp He Hai to death, the He clan's immortal lords were immediately enraged. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying aura erupted, sweeping in all directions and shooting straight into the sky. Rumble. The aura was like a tidal wave or a stormy sea with the He clan's experts as the center, wildly sweeping in all directions. Instantly, countless immortals around the square were caught in the crossfire. Bang! 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 Countless immortals were sent flying by the terrifying aura. Some of the immortals who were closer were even directly blasted into a bloody mist by the terrifying aura. In just an instant, hundreds of immortals were blasted to death. However, even more immortals were injured to varying degrees. Now, apart from Li Ling, who was enveloped by the spatial barrier, Murong Yu and the others were motionless. The spatial barrier was indeed miraculous. Although layers of incomparably violent ripples appeared from the impact of the Immortal Lord's terrifying aura, it did not break. In fact, Li Ling, who was within the spatial barrier, saw that when the energy approached the ripples, it was miraculously diverted. In other words, it was directly dispelled. Such a scene made Li Ling, who was originally trembling, calm down. After calming down, he curiously looked at the layers of ripples around him, wondering what they were. Outside the spatial barrier, Murong Yu did not make a move. With Xiahou Zhua, an immortal emperor expert there, the He clan's immortal lords' terrifying auras were like child's play. When they rushed near Xiahou Zhua, they automatically turned around and dissipated into the distance. All of you deserve to die. When he saw that these people had recklessly harmed the innocent and killed hundreds of immortals, a cold glint flashed in Murong Yu's eyes. Killing immortals so casually? It seemed that the He clan was not a good person either. Murong Yu even saw that the halos on these people's bodies had turned even darker after killing the hundreds of immortals. Although not many of the people who were killed were good people. However, it remained that they had died innocently. Thus, it was only natural that those people's evil star ratings would increase. Today, no matter what, we must destroy the He clan. At the very least, we must not let their villains off. Uncle. After the crowd was forced back, Li Ling finally saw Murong Yu and the others inside the spatial shield. Just now, he had heard Murong Yu's voice and knew that Murong Yu was nearby. Because of this, he suspected that all of this was done by Murong Yu in secret. Even if he didn't do it himself, it would be the people around him. Li Ling, come over here, Murong Yu said to Li Ling. At the same time, he gave Xiahou Zhua a look. Then, Xiahou Zhua took action and flew over to protect Li Ling. Li Ling, what are you doing? If I hadn't come in time, you would have died today. Seeing Li Ling walking over, Murong Yu's face darkened. Li Ling was Li Feng's son and Murong Yu's relative. This guy was always reckless and always stirred up trouble. Even though he had been the holy lord of Huaxia's cultivation world for many years, his character had not changed. Murong Yu did not want anything to happen to this guy. Hee, Uncle, don't you always arrive in time? Of course, even if you don't come in time, I can still summon you. Didn't you say that once I summon you, you will appear in time? Li Ling looked at Murong Yu and said with a smile, Summon your head. Murong Yu gave this guy a knock on the head. This guy still had the temperament of a child. Murong Yu felt helpless. The uncle and nephew chatted as if nothing had happened and directly ignored the immortal lords of the He clan. Seeing this scene, the immortal lords of the He clan were furious. Who are you? An immortal lord took a step forward with a gloomy face and asked Murong Yu and the others with murderous intent. Who are we? Little Ape King suddenly sneered and took out He Yang's head from his storage ring. He threw it at them and said with a sneer, I'm just someone who gave you a gift. However, this gift is a bit rubbish. I hope you don't take it to heart. As the saying goes, the gift is trivial, but the thought is more important. He Yang? When they saw He Yang's head, the immortal lords of the He clan were furious. He Yang. All of them had been killed by the same group of people. The immortal lords of the He clan were furious and sorrowful. Kill them. An immortal lord roared and attacked angrily. He formed a huge palm with a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It smashed down on Murong Yu and the others, wanting to crush Murong Yu and the others into dust. At the same time, the other immortal lords of the He clan attacked at the same time. They all exploded with terrifying power and attacked Murong Yu and the others. Murong Yu controlled the power of space to create a shield around him and the others. Then, he turned to Xiahou Zhuo and said, "Is it okay to leave these immortal lords to you?" "Absolutely." Xiahou Zhuo laughed sinisterly. The difference between an immortal emperor and an immortal lord couldn't be measured by Tao. In front of an immortal emperor, those who didn't have the strength of an immortal emperor were ants. No matter how many of them there were, they were still ants. Moreover, Xiahou Zhuo had recently obtained an emperor weapon. With an additional emperor weapon, Xiahou Zhuo could explode with strength stronger than his peak. Although, he hadn't completely refined this emperor weapon. "Xiahou Zhuo, it's best if you don't kill them. I want to kill them with my own hands," Murong Yu suddenly said. Xiahou Zhuo was stunned. He didn't know why Murong Yu hated these people so much. Of course, Xiahou Zhuo didn't know that Murong Yu wanted to kill them for the star points. He only thought that Murong Yu hated these people. "Bastards, eat my brick," Xiahou Zhuo sneered. He didn't do anything, but a golden brick the size of a mountain suddenly appeared in the air above the few immortal monarchs of the He clan. This was the emperor weapon that Xiahou Zhuo had obtained after killing Ko Ping. At this moment, the brick emperor weapon carried a terrifying power that crushed the void and came crashing down. The He clan's immortal lords were shocked when they saw this. Sensing the danger, they immediately retracted their attacks and turned their attention to the golden brick that was pressing down on them. The attacks of the immortal monarchs collided with the golden brick at almost the same time. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, the He clan's immortal lords' attacks were shattered and turned into dust. However, the golden brick only paused for a moment before it turned into a golden light and came crashing down. Kill! The He clan's immortal lords went crazy. They roared and unleashed a terrifying power to attack the golden brick that was coming down. Boom! 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 However, there was a great disparity in strength between the two sides. No matter how the immortal lords attacked, they couldn't stop the golden brick's attack. Boom! After a loud explosion, the golden brick came crashing down with an unparalleled pressure. It suppressed the He clan's immortal lords deep into the ground. Why didn't the He clan's immortal lords run away? They knew that they weren't a match for the golden brick, so why did they still stand there foolishly? It wasn't that they didn't want to run away, but they had to have time to do so. From the appearance of the golden brick to the suppression of them deep into the ground, everything happened in an instant. In an instant, these tragic immortal lords couldn't escape at all. Poof! When they were suppressed by the golden brick, the He clan's immortal lords felt as though they were being crushed by a divine mountain from the heaven realm. Their bodies were instantly smashed into a pile of mush. However, the strange thing was that they didn't die. Because of Murong Yu's words, Xiahou Zhuo didn't kill them. However, even if that was the case, they were still miserable enough. Weak, Xiahou Zhuo reached out and recalled the golden brick. At the same time, he pulled the immortal lords over. A cold light flashed in Murong Yu's eyes as a spatial energy flashed. The He clan's immortal lords were crushed into dust. They couldn't be more dead. Congratulations, young master. You've obtained 100,000 star points. At this moment, Butler Tian's voice rang in Murong Yu's mind. 100,000 star points? Is it just these immortal lords, or He Yang and the rest? Murong Yu asked. In the past, every time Murong Yu killed a villain, Butler Tian would tell him how many star points he had obtained. However, later on, Murong Yu felt that it was too cumbersome to report the number like this. Hence, he discussed with Butler Tian. Once he reached 100,000 star points, he would tell Murong Yu, including He Yang and the rest, young master, you've obtained a total of 100,000 star points. Butler Tian said respectfully, 100,000 star points. Murong Yu was a little shocked. One should know that when he killed villains with a higher star level in Huaxia's cultivation world, he had obtained a total of 3 million star points. That was the entire cultivation world. Countless villains had been killed, but he only obtained a few star points. However, he had only killed a few villains and obtained 100,000 star points. Apart from the fact that these immortal lords were stronger than Murong Yu and Murong, you would obtain additional star points as a reward. The most important reason was that these villains had extremely high star levels. He Clan. Murong Yu's eyes flickered as he looked at the He Clan in front of him. Looking from afar, the entire He Clan was surrounded by a layer of black chi. This was the black halo on the He Clan's immortals. After they gathered, even the entire sky was affected. One could imagine how many villains there were in the He Clan. This overlord of Bamboo State must have done a lot of bad things. Let's go. We'll go directly to the He Clan. Li Ling and the rest were shocked by Xiahou Zhuo's methods. After a long while, they finally reacted. Li Ling said with a face full of excitement. Chapter 628. All of you deserve to die. However, before Murong Yu and the others could get close to the He family, a gloomy and terrifying voice came from the He family. Then, a huge and terrifying pressure like that of a heavenly god pressed down from the sky. At this moment, even though they were standing beside Xiahou Zhuo, Murong Yu and the others could feel a great force acting on them. The terrifying power was earth-shattering. It was like a divine mountain pressing down on them, wanting to crush them into dust. A cold light flashed in Xiahou Zhuo's eyes. In less than an instant, he had already reacted. At the same time, an extremely terrifying aura swept out and clashed with the powerful and terrifying pressure. Xiahou Zhuo made his move, and the pressure on Murong Yu and the others suddenly disappeared. That scared me to death. That aura is so terrifying. Li Ling's face was pale as he said with lingering fear. Just now, when that incomparably huge pressure came crashing down, it almost destroyed them. Fortunately, Xiahou Zhuo was already on guard. Moreover, Xiahou Zhuo's reaction was extremely fast. If he had been a moment slower, Li Ling and the others would have been crushed into dust by that terrifying pressure. Immortal Emperor, Xiahou Zhuo's eyes shone brightly. In fact, Murong, you could even see the rising fighting spirit on his face. As an Immortal Emperor Realm expert, only experts in the Immortal Emperor Realm could make them feel battle intent and excitement. Swoosh! An old man appeared in front of Murong Yu and the others. The old man's face was sinister, and his body emitted a terrifying pressure. His eyes flickered with a terrifying cold light as he looked at Murong Yu and the others. You all kill my He family's people. You all deserve to die. The old man was an Immortal Emperor Realm existence of the He family, an ancestor-level existence. He Yurong was an Immortal Emperor Realm expert, a super expert of the He family. It was because of his existence that the He family had been standing tall and had gradually grown from a small family to an overlord of the Bamboo State. It could even be said that everything that the He family had today was all because of He Yurong. Without He Yurong, there would be no He family. As the patriarch of the He clan, He Yurong was not only powerful, but also vicious and merciless. His hands were stained with blood as he fought his way up. Therefore, in Murong Yu's eyes, this guy's entire body was shrouded in black chi, like black ink, incomparably black. This fellow's evil person star is very high. Murong Yu's eyes flashed. However, after seeing this guy, Murong Yu finally understood why almost everyone in the He family was evil. As the saying goes, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. If the head of the He family was like this, then how good would the people below be? At that moment, He Yurong was extremely furious. He had only come out to play a little, but many of the He clan's experts have been killed. One had to know that there were only a few high Immortal Realm experts in the entire He clan. What angered He Yurong the most was that both He Hai and He Yang had been killed. Although these two people's strength was not very good, they were very doted on by He Yurong. This guy was very protective. All of you deserve to die. He Yurong looked at Murong Yu and the others with murderous intent as she walked over step by step. A terrifying aura soared into the sky and swept in all directions. Xiahou Zhuo sneered in his heart as he looked at He Yurong with soaring battle intent. Hiyurong did not ask who Murong-yu and the others were, or why they were looking for trouble with the He clan. These were not her concern. In any case, they were all going to die. They were all going to die. So what if she knew their identity? Seeing that Hiyurong's aura was getting stronger and stronger, and she even had the intention to fight in Bamboo City, Xiahou Zhuo could not help but frown. Let's fight outside the city. Xiahou Zhuo looked at Hiyurong and said in a deep voice, he did not want to fight here. Once the two immortal emperors fought in Bamboo City would be destroyed by their terrifying power. At that time, countless lives would be caught in the crossfire and killed by them. Hiyurong nodded. After all, the He clan was also in Bamboo City. Once they fought, the He clan would definitely be destroyed. That was something Hiyurong did not want to see. Immediately, Hiyurong soared into the sky and flew into the distance. As he left, he transmitted a message to the He clan's experts, telling them to kill Murong-yu without delay. Of course, if Xiahou Zhuo took away Murong-yu and the others, the He clan's experts would not need to do anything. That way, he would personally kill Xiahou Zhuo and the others. Don't worry about us. You just need to kill Hiyurong. Murong-yu transmitted when he saw Xiahou Zhuo's hesitation. In that case, all of you must be careful. Xiahou Zhuo instructed, then soared into the sky and charged into the distance. In a short while, he disappeared into the distant horizon. Oh my God, those two great gods are finally gone. After Xiahou Zhuo and the others left, the two terrifying auras that had enveloped Bamboo City finally disappeared. Only then did the immortals in Bamboo City breathe a sigh of relief. Although the two auras had no intention of targeting them, and were controlled by the two immortal emperors within a certain range. However, even the tip of the iceberg of immortal emperors' might was enough to make their souls tremble. While everyone in Bamboo City relaxed, Little Ape King and the others felt their hearts tighten. That was because as soon as Xiahou Zhuo and the others left, many people rushed out from the He clan and surrounded him. These bastards are really shameless. Little Ape King said through gritted teeth. The people who surrounded them were all very powerful. They were far from what they could compare with. 10 immortal monarchs and 20 immortal kings. These shouldn't be all of the He clan's experts. Murong-yu and the others. Only Murong-yu remained calm and collected. Logically speaking, it shouldn't take so many years to kill Murong-yu and the others who weren't even 9 Heaven Shin immortals. However, Murong-yu and the others had killed some of their immortal monarchs before. They had to be careful, or rather, they were afraid of death. Take them down. An immortal monarch coldly glanced at Murong-yu and the others and then shouted. Immediately, an immortal monarch stretched out his hand and grabbed Murong-yu and the others. Wait! At this moment, Murong-yu suddenly shouted. Hearing this, the He clan's people couldn't help but pause. A strange smile appeared on Murong-yu's face. He looked at the He clan's experts and said, before we make a move, I want to give you some gifts. A small gift? Please accept it. The He clan's experts frowned slightly, not knowing what Murong-yu meant. However, they soon understood the meaning behind Murong-yu's words. Before Murong-yu's voice fell, an immortal king from the He clan's side suddenly flew up. At the same time that this immortal king's head was chopped off, even more immortal kings' heads flew up. In just a short period of time, more than 20 immortal kings were beheaded. Even their souls were killed. Seeing this scene, the He clan's people couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Even though they were immortal monarchs, they didn't know who had beheaded these immortal kings. This was because they couldn't sense the fluctuations of power at all. Even if it was an immortal Emperor Realm expert who made a move, even if it was so fast that they couldn't react, there would still be fluctuations of power. But now there was nothing. It was as if those people's heads were cut off by themselves. It was too terrifying. These immortal monarchs felt a chill in their hearts, and cold sweat appeared on their backs. These terrified immortal monarchs naturally didn't know what was going on. Other than Murong-yu, no one present knew what was going on. Spatial rules, spatial power. Just now, Murong-yu directly used the power of space to kill all those immortal kings. As for why he didn't kill these immortal monarchs, this was because he didn't have the confidence to do so. Kill them. These terrified immortal monarchs roared, and then attacked at the same time, attacking Moronyu and the other three. Spatial barrier. Spatial imprisonment. Spatial barrier. In an instant, Moronyu attacked repeatedly, while imprisoning the space around those immortal monarchs. He also created a spatial barrier between them like a wall. Finally, he added a spatial barrier around himself and the others. However, Moronyu was still a little worried. He had already secretly contacted Black Lotus in his heart. Once the spatial barrier he set up couldn't hold on, Black Lotus would immediately attack. The moment the 10 immortal monarchs were about to attack, they suddenly felt as if they had fallen into a swamp. In the void, an inexplicable force entangled them, as if to imprison them. Everyone was shocked, and at the same time, they unleashed a terrifying power. Boom! 10 immortal monarchs unleashed their strongest power at the same time, which was very terrifying. At the very least, Muronyu's spatial imprisonment couldn't restrain them. Even the spatial power that Muronyu controlled was instantly shattered. After all, Moronyu was only a golden immortal. Even if the spatial rules were powerful, he could only control the surface. It might be possible to imprison an immortal monarch. However, it was impossible to imprison 10 immortal monarchs at the same time, unless he had a deeper understanding of the law of space, a stronger control over it, or an even stronger power. Boom! After the 10 immortal monarchs broke through the spatial shackles, their terrifying power also shattered the spatial barrier between them. Retreat. When they broke through the spatial shackles, Moronyu quickly retreated with the little ape king and the others. Where do you think you're going? The immortal monarchs of the He family laughed sinisterly and chased after them. However, at this moment, Moronyu didn't panic. On the contrary, he revealed a smile. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.